it's not their fault. Like this culture is bad, and has become bad for human connection in ways that we didn't choose. You know, I am hopeful, though, that in recognizing that the culture is off, that something is off, that can give people some motivation or impetus to try and change it. And I think that the first thing that we have to start doing is, and this is a very internet-y suggestion, just touching grass, just going outside and like trying, perhaps even failing, to talk to people by seeking out that in-person connection, because everybody wants it. Like, you think that people don't want it, but if you want it, someone else wants it too. And like, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to get it right. You can just try. And that's the first step.
That's writer and researcher Christine Emba. This conversation ran in its full form on my podcast, The Gray Area, which you can find wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Sean Allen.
Hi, I'm Ifi Chiwetelu, and you are listening to CBC Radio 1. The news is next.
You expressed explicitly
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. Good to be with you. Happy first weekday of summer. Hope you had yourselves a lovely weekend. I know the weather was just bang on, at least here in Winnipeg, wasn't it? I didn't think I spent one moment thinking about whether it's too hot, too cold. However, there is a special weather statement in effect now for much of southwestern Manitoba. We're going to get to the details on that just ahead. But first, let's say hello to the team here. Abby Adiemi is our studio technician and keeping an eye on your weather this morning. As well, Sierra Sanders is our studio director, keeping an eye on your commute. And Darren Morash is our YouTube producer, keeping an eye on YouTube. Let's also say good morning to Heather Wells with your news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, nearly 4,000 Manitobans made insolvency filings last year. That is the highest number in the last decade. Mark Kalinowski is a financial educator at the Credit Counseling Society. He says it's not surprising many people are struggling with debt. He says the world is very unsettling and the cost of living has gone up dramatically. We're going to hear more from him. As well, hundreds gathered at the Forks to celebrate yesterday's National Indigenous Peoples Day, a showcase of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis culture. Residential school survivor Donna Green says these celebrations are key to healing. Our next news coming up at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Let's talk about that special weather statement. So heavy rainfall possibly tonight through into Tuesday for much of southwestern Manitoba. We're talking from Headingley, Portage la Prairie, Carman, Morden, Winkler, Brandon, Clarny, Melita, Verdon, Minnedosa, Riding Mountain. So pretty much all of southwestern Manitoba, there's a chance of heavy rain. As much as 10 to 40 millimeters in general are expected, but that could even be higher in some more localized areas. So we're going to get some more details on that. We're keeping an eye on that, of course, throughout the next couple days. Looking ahead now for this next hour of the show, stay tuned. The Competition Bureau is looking into Canada's food supply chain and the impact it has on the cost of groceries. So we're going to ask an expert if the plan has any chance of actually lowering prices. That's coming up right here on Information Radio. I'm Corey Funk in for Marcy Marcusa. We'll be back.
On cue. There's a good chance that some of your favorite albums of the last 10 years were made by the same person. Like Taylor Swift, Lana Del Rey, Lorde. Jack Antonoff has produced them all. He's one of the most sought-after producers in music right now, and he'll be here to talk about being in the room when something legendary gets made.
I feel like in service of this thing.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Keir Starmer has resigned as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. This comes just 2 years after leading the Labour Party to a landslide election win. Starmer succumbed to a coordinated push from his own MPs to step aside. His departure sets the stage for Britain to welcome its 7th Prime Minister in just under 10 years. Anna Cunningham reports from London.
Walking up this street 2 years ago was the proudest moment of my life.
After a weekend of speculation, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, the man who took the Labour Party to a landslide victory in July 2024, announced his decision.
I will resign as leader of the Labour Party. I have spoken to His Majesty the King this morning to inform him of my decision.
In the wake of bruising nationwide local election results last month, Starmer rapidly lost the confidence of his cabinet ministers and governing MPs. He said he will leave office after a new Labour leader who will become Prime Minister is selected.
I will remain in post as Prime Minister until the contest is complete.
Despite efforts to move Britain closer to Europe, renewing ties with Canada and his support for Ukraine, the British Prime Minister's downfall is marked by a failure of domestic politics. There has been a series of policy U-turns, questions too about his judgment, in particular his appointing a close friend of Jeffrey Epstein, Peter Mandelson, as UK ambassador to the US. The governing Labour Party is fully aware that it faces opposition in the form of growing support for the populist, hard right-leaning Reform Party. It believes it can only retain power with a change in leadership.
I shall spend more time on the most important job, being the best husband I can to my fantastic wife Vic, who has been a rock by my side through good times and bad.
Starmer is now the shortest-serving Labour Prime Minister in history. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
Canada is securing a new eye in the sky for its northern frontier. Ottawa has signed a $2.5 billion agreement with Australia to purchase advanced radar technology. Procurement Secretary Stephen Fuhr signed the deal late Sunday in Canberra. He says the equipment will help Canada secure its Arctic borders.
This capability will significantly enhance Canada's Arctic domain awareness, detect and track air and maritime threats with much greater range, strengthen NORAD by providing earlier warning and improving continental defense, and reinforce Canada's Arctic sovereignty.
Over-the-horizon radar allows operators to track missiles and aircraft thousands of kilometers away. The system is seen as a crucial investment in monitoring threats over the far north. It is expected to be operational by 2029. Prime Minister Mark Carney announced a strategic partnership with Australia last year, shortly after taking office. Mediators from Qatar and Pakistan say progress is being made in finding a permanent end to the U.S.-Iran war. Their meeting with both parties went into the early hours today in Switzerland. The two sides have agreed on a roadmap to end the conflict within 60 days. Lower-level talks will now take place for the rest of the week. The violence in Lebanon remains a sticking point. Neither Israel nor Hezbollah are involved in the peace talks. Israel says it's keeping its forces there until Hezbollah is no longer a threat. Hezbollah says its attacks stop once Israel pulls out. Protesters are erupting in Colombia after Sunday's presidential election results. Supporters of the defeated leftist candidate clashed with police on the streets of Cali. Initial results show a win for the Trump-backed conservative, but the margin of victory is just 1%. As Manuel Rueda reports from Bogota, it is a reflection of the deep divisions in the country.
Supporters of conservative candidate Abelardo de la Espriella drove through Bogota honking their horns and waving Colombian flags to celebrate the election result. Sandra Sambo moved from Colombia 2 years ago after her daughter survived a kidnapping attempt. She returned for the election. We need to recover our public spaces and our security. I hope that de la Espriella fulfills his promises, she said. The wealthy criminal lawyer ran for office for the first time in his life and gained popularity for promising a tough approach to crime that includes building mega prisons and canceling peace talks with Colombia's rebel groups. These proposals resonated with many voters in Colombia. De la Espriella also became famous for his combative rhetoric, but on Sunday he moderated his tone. saying he'll make Colombia great again and govern for everyone. In democracies, there are no enemies, he says. Only people with the same rights who have different opinions. Left-wing candidate Ivan Cepeda has not conceded defeat. He says the results of Sunday's count, which shows a 1% difference between both candidates, must be verified by judges. The revision could take up to a week to complete, but analysts say it's unlikely to change Sunday's result. Manuel Rueda for CBC News, Bogotá.
An out-of-control wildfire is burning just 3 kilometers south of Lytton, British Columbia. It's triggered evacuation orders and brought back painful memories for a community still trying to rebuild. Nearly 5 years ago, wildfire tore through the town. As Brady Strachan tells us, this new fire has residents once again feeling a deep sense of unease.
The out-of-control wildfire is chewing through steep canyon terrain just south of Lytton. BC Wildfire Service crews are attacking it from the ground and the air. Fanned by winds, the flames threaten hundreds of homes now under evacuation alerts or orders.
You know, it's going to continue with that hot and very dry in the outlook with our peak temperatures coming up a little bit later, early next week.
Fire Information Officer Paula Wallbauer says a specialized crew of nearly 50 firefighters is focused entirely on structure protection.
They'll have bladders hooking up to water and checking their sprinklers, setting them up. And checking and making sure in the event that they need them, that they're up and ready to go.
The fire is burning just 3 kilometers from Lytton, a community still recovering from a catastrophic blaze 5 years ago.
It's like we're starting all over again. Like
Dean Adams lost his home in 2021. With the 5-year anniversary of that fatal fire just over a week away, he says it's an uneasy sense of déjà vu.
To go through it again. And the feeling is really weird. It's hard to say, hard to believe, but my neighbor over here, they're the ones that passed away.
This fire comes during a time of extreme drought across BC. Following a low snowpack and dry spring, officials warn of challenging months ahead as the province approaches peak wildfire season. Brady Strachan, CBC News, near Kamloops, BC.
Residents in central Alberta are being asked to conserve water. Sewer and stormwater systems reached capacity with heavy rainfall in and around Edmonton. And there are concerns more rain in the forecast could make conditions worse. Non-essential water use warnings have been issued in several nearby communities, including St. Albert and Beaumont. Environment Canada says more than 110 millimeters of rain has already fallen. A scorching weather system from the Sahara Desert has settled over much of Europe. Temperatures across the continent are in the mid-30s or higher. Heat warnings are in place in parts of Spain, France, and Germany. As Megan Williams reports, residents and tourists in Italy are struggling to find cool shelter.
In the blazing sun outside the Colosseum, women and men alike flap the thick air with foldable fans, desperate to create even the smallest of breezes. One tourist from Barcelona describes it as overwhelming.
Agobiados, mucho calor. El calor se pega a la piel.
Too hot. The heat sticks to your skin, he says. Here in Italy, red alerts have been issued to 8 cities, including Florence, Bologna, Milan, and Turin. Rome is one of Europe's greenest cities, but most of the parks are on the outskirts, with little shade in the historic center. The city has plans to plant 1 million new trees, create dozens of small urban forests, and has even begun giving out free trees in some of the hottest neighborhoods. But critics say the planting isn't happening fast enough. Last summer, Rome recorded more than 800 heat-related deaths. For now, some visitors are going underground, taking tours of the ancient quarries near the Colosseum, where temperatures stay around 18 degrees year-round. I'd sleep here if I could, said one woman. Megan Williams, CBC News, Rome.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. More on our top story. Keir Starmer announcing his resignation at cbcnews.ca. It's on our main page. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. Well, happy Monday. Still coming up here this hour on the show. We're going to hear the sounds of yesterday's Manitoba Marathon, which saw a record number of runners take to the streets on foot. Also, this half hour on the show, the Competition Bureau is looking into Canada's food supply chain and the impact it has on the cost of groceries. We're going to ask an expert if the plan has any chance of actually lowering prices. Also, first up here on the show, we're going to talk about post-secondary scholarships available for students living in inner city Winnipeg. But stay tuned. Later this hour, summer is upon us, and with the potential for this year's El Nino weather pattern to be particularly strong, we're going to explore what that might mean for us here in Manitoba. We're going to talk with a climatologist. Stay tuned for that. Right now, though, 6:11, let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines. Good morning. Oh, Heather, we is not there quite yet. But right now, though, I will tell you that there is a special weather statement in effect for Manitoba. And we are going to get to that with Abby. But right now, let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines. Good morning. Oh, no Heather there right now. I will talk about that weather statement then in the meantime. There is a weather statement in effect for much of southwestern Manitoba that we won't really see until later this evening. It's a rainfall warning. Heavy rainfall possible for the areas of Portage La Prairie, Headingley, Morden, Brandon, Killarney, Melita, Verdun, Minnedosa, Riding Mountain National Park as well. So pretty much every part of southwestern Manitoba, you could see as much as 10 to 40 millimeters of rain this morning. So if that's an issue for you, look out for that. It could even see more in some potentially localized areas. So that is going to start tonight. It's going to be starting around Tuesday evening or so, where it's going to be the worst. So look out for that. Tonight through Tuesday, actually. So heads up there. As of right now, though, let's take a look at your weather here in Winnipeg. It's 13. We are heading for a high today of 21. And then we are going to be dipping down to 13 overnight, looking to a high of, and then tomorrow we can expect some showers as well here in Winnipeg as well. Higher showers in southwestern Manitoba, but showers right now. Maybe we'll head now to Sierra Sanders, who's keeping an eye on your commute right now. Good morning, Sierra.
Oh, let me get myself settled. It already feels like a Monday, doesn't it? Yeah, Corey, not too much going on out there on the commute right now. It's been pretty quiet on the commuter line here to start off the day, but just something to note about a closure on St. John Ambulance Way. So all northbound lanes of St. John Ambulance Way between Empress Street East to Portage Avenue will be closed for water work until July 3rd. So there will be no access to Portage Avenue East. So you want to make sure to use alternate routes there if that is on your commute. The number to call this morning is 204-788-3093.
Thank you very much, Sierra. Abby, I know I spoke a little bit about what's ahead for southwestern Manitoba, but what's going on today?
We're just still tracking the system that's going to be stretching, as you mentioned, from the Brandon area all the way towards Morden, Portage La Prairie, Headingley. We're looking at heavy rain, and it's going to be bringing significant amounts of water rainfall towards that region. But for the Red River Valley area here, we're looking at a mix of sun and clouds alongside some humidity. Temperatures currently sitting around 13-14 degrees at the Forks. For the rest of the day, we are looking at temperatures really hovering near these 14s and 15s before we get to a daytime high of 21. And if we look across the southern regions, similar conditions locked under cloudy skies between 10 and 12, stretching from the Pembina Valley region all the way to the Westman region. And most of the regions will be seeing highs close to 22. Up north, we're seeing temperatures just, more like these comfortable pockets of 7 to 13 degrees, with the highest values in the north central zone where we're seeing 13 degrees around the Power Flim Flam, both tracking sunny conditions at this time and maxing out around 21. So it's more like a split. Down south, we're expecting heavy rain in the Pembina Valley region and the Westman region. And Winnipeg right now, we sit at 13, heading to a high of 21.
Well, up first here on the show, post-secondary scholarships are up for grabs for students living in inner-city Winnipeg. Westland Foundation is offering them to help with tuition for students at 8 Winnipeg schools. And John Pristansky is the president and founder of the Westland Foundation. And John joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
So just tell us about these scholarships and who's eligible.
Well, the Westland Foundation has a scholarship program, and students that are eligible are students that go to school in the inner Winnipeg area. We say inner Winnipeg as opposed to inner city because inner Winnipeg denotes a neighborhood where families live, people participate in various activities, and it's a contributing community to the city of Winnipeg. Unlike the term inner city, which denotes any inner city and has a negative connotation.
And when we talk about the inner, is there kind of like a rough geographical parameters to that, or how would you kind of define that area?
We look at the foundation boundaries as being in Winnipeg, which are the Assiniboine and Red Rivers, and Route 90 on the west, and Inkster Boulevard on the north.
Okay.
And then what we do there is with the scholarship, any time a student's attending attending a junior to senior high school course or class within the foundation boundaries. For example, it could be Tikvok, could be Sisler, it could be Gordon Bell. Anytime from grade 7 to 12, they earn 70% or better in the high school courses. We will credit them with an amount of money yet to be determined based on our annual returns from our endowed funds. They'll get a credit, and then when they go to UW, or C Polytech, the students can apply for the scholarship. This year, some of the scholarships that the students raised or earned were $4,000.
Wow, that's a big sum of money. How many people received scholarships? This most recent year.
This most recent year, I believe it was something along the lines of 22 to 24 students.
And in terms of the stories that you heard from some of the students, in terms of what these scholarships meant to them, what have you heard?
I've heard a variety of different stories. For example, one year we were working with some students in our office, and a mother and a student attended. The mother said, "Thank you so very much for giving my student or my child a scholarship." And I looked at this lady. I said, "She earned it." And the look in their eyes was, wow. The mother was so proud. I've had other students who have said, I'm the first one attending post-secondary school in my family's history, and my family never believed we would go. And because of Westland's Education Fund and the belief that all students can earn an opportunity to go to school, and we can help provide scholarships, we've been able to make a difference in their lives.
And why did the Westland Fund start this in the first place?
I started the foundation back in around 92. We became incorporated in 93. And the reason we started it was to help make a difference in inner Winnipeg lives. I've seen, and I still live in inner Winnipeg. I'm a lifelong North Point Douglas resident. And I've seen how the communities, they just need a hand up. And they need someone to believe in them. And providing scholarships, it helps to provide opportunities for education. And education is the best gift, asset, resource that a person can have that changes lives. And so we believe that if we want to make a better neighborhood, a better city, let's help provide scholarships, or let's help provide the students with opportunities to attend and earn their own education. And so we decided on scholarships.
So if there's someone listening, maybe a parent or a student themselves who want to apply, what do people need to know? What's the deadline?
The deadline is June 30th to apply for scholarships. Although if people are late We don't turn anyone away. And they can just go to our website, westlandfoundation.com, and apply, or just Google Westland Foundation, and just follow the links to the application. The student will have to be able to bring in their transcript so we could measure the final marks and count them, and then come September, we'll be able to provide a scholarship to them.
Well, John, thanks for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. John Prstansky is the president and founder of the Westland Foundation.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
It looks like this is maybe a one-day blip when farmers across the province need hot and dry.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take.
In general, it's harder to find a job even if you're educated.
I'm Marjorie Dowhouse. From 12:15 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
When I was 5 or 6, my parents gave me seeds and helped me plant them. That was probably close to 70 years ago. And here I am still gardening.
It just brings everyone together. Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you weekdays on CBC.
6:21 right now. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. Well, for Canadians frustrated by the high cost of food these days, the Competition Bureau says it is now looking into one factor affecting grocery prices, a lack of competition along the food supply chain. And it says it'll target 3 areas: production and processing, transportation and distribution, and retail pricing practices. And joining me now is Stuart Smythe, professor in the Department of Agricultural and Resource Economics at the University of Saskatchewan. Good morning.
Good morning, Corey.
So what's the level of competition in Canada's grocery sector right now?
It's actually surprisingly thin when you think about it. And, out here in the prairies, we've got Safeway, Sobeys, Co-op, and a few independents, but outside of that, there's just those few handful of retailers, and we've got Metro in Quebec, so it really doesn't change if you go down into Eastern Canada. So a very concentrated group of core actors that account for the majority of our shopping availability.
And why is that? What's the biggest reason why there's so few players, and it's so hard to get more players into the industry to create that competition and ideally lower down those prices?
Excellent question. I think one of the factors that's underlying this is just the significant negotiating power that grocery retailers have in the commercial real estate space, right? So if you think about where your grocery stores are, most of them are anchors in residential malls. So that gives them, because of the square footage, they're taking incredible leverage to negotiate contracts that won't allow any other grocery retail sales within that facility, and even to restrict the availability of other grocery retailers within a certain radius geographically. So that gives a lot of power, and we've seen how powerful that is, because it's just a few years ago that Lowe's announced that they were going to shut down and sell their stores and retreat back to the U.S. So clearly, well-established American chains have found it difficult to break in and be profitable within the Canadian retail sector.
And it's easy to train our focus on these grocery stores because that's where we ultimately get our food. But the Competition Bureau is focusing on the entire supply chain here. So where do you see the most promise in terms of somehow getting prices down along the supply chain?
So I think one of the areas that will be investigated is meat processing. 6 months ago, the Department of Justice in the U.S. announced that they were going to do a similar exercise and investigate the concentration within the meat processing sector, where in the U.S., the large 4 meat processors account for 85% of all the meat that's processed. In Canada, the 4 largest meat processors account for 95%, and the 2 biggest account for 85% of all the meat processed in Canada. So I would expect that would be one sector that would be investigated. They might also invest, as you identify, along the supply chain, or the distribution system. So goods that are, less perishable, dry goods, those types of things are, often transported by rail. The fact that we only have 2 rail companies in Canada that to move freight certainly creates the potential for collusion between those 2 companies to inflate prices. So I think that would be another area that would be investigated, and potentially would be a good opportunity to say, okay, well, we're going to open up and allow joint running rights. International rail companies are able to move in and for a very low cost get access to our rail bed system. That would definitely increase the competition that would benefit all of us.
And how much does the Competition Bureau have to actually make those changes, or can all it do is just identify that there's a problem?
No, so it does have some powers in that area. Going back 7 or 8 years ago when Bayer and Monsanto merged, they analyzed that merger and forced those 2 companies to divest portions of their business practices to competitors to ensure that, in this case, farmers had reasonable access or competitive access to products and technologies. So they could, if they discovered that, there was instances where there was an over concentration in the sector, they would have that ability to actually force these companies to be more competitive by, maybe selling a portion of their stores in a certain geographical area or region to a competitor, and preferably one that's not already operating within Canada.
And historically, has that been pretty effective in the past? Has the Competition Bureau actually clamped down? You mentioned like the Monsanto merger there. Is it pretty effective at getting that done?
I think so. I mean, farmers are continuing to have, reasonably good access to a diversity of products and seed options. So I think, what the Competition Bureau recommended has been beneficial. Certainly, I mean, it hasn't prohibited price increases. So just because you create a market for additional competition, it's not an automatic that food prices would suddenly start to come down, right? There's all of the external factors such as, the peace agreement, as an example, between Iran and the U.S. will help to bring down energy prices. So, the fact that it's costing less fuel to transport groceries from point A to point B should benefit us over the coming months. But, there's no guarantee that the Competition Bureau is going to be able to drive grocery prices down.
Mm-hmm. So potential lack of competition. You mentioned fuel prices there. What else is there that are driving up grocery prices right now that we could focus on?
One of the largest ones right now is just the value of the Canadian dollar compared to the American dollar. We, about 80% of the fresh produce that we consume in Canada comes from the U.S., but all of the other goods we import from every other country, those contracts are priced in U.S. dollars. So if our dollar drops in value by a cent, that means that all of us are paying more money to purchase all of those imported food products.
And of course, the Carney government announced its $3 billion food security strategy earlier this month. What do you think that could do to bring down prices?
I think that's more of a long-term strategy. When I look at the policy framework behind that, what it suggests to me is that they're looking 2 or 3 years down the road, as opposed to trying to push through a bunch of policy changes that could have a significant sort of quick fix impact in this calendar year.
Well, Stuart, thanks for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, Corey. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Stuart Smythe is a professor in the Department of Agricultural and Resource Economics at the University of Saskatchewan. We reached him in Saskatoon this morning. And speaking of prices, Statistics Canada will release its latest inflation numbers today. So coming up in our business report with Christelle Ramlakan, we're going to talk about what to expect from Statistics Canada this morning, what it could mean. That's coming up on your business report. Right now, it is 6:29. I'm Corey Funk in for Marcy Marcusa. Time now for your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it's 13 degrees. It's going to be a beautiful day for the first Monday of summer. Mix of sun and clouds today, a high of 21. Now, there is a special weather statement for western Manitoba, including parts of central regions like Portage-la Prairie, Carman, Morden, Winkler, Brandon. Heavy rainfall possible tonight through Tuesday. Anywhere between 10 and 40 millimeters is expected. The family of a woman whose rings were stolen right off her finger in a Winnipeg personal care home is fighting for the restitution a judge awarded them. The case dates back to 2019. A worker at Kildonan Care Home stole jewelry in February and March of that year from 8 residents living with dementia or Alzheimer's. Anna Mercado was sentenced to 1 year in jail and ordered to pay restitution to the victims or their families. A daughter of one of the victims, Carla Sly, got $400, but she is still waiting for an additional $3,800 payment ordered by the judge, which the court says is her responsibility to collect.
It's not the money. For me, it's about how victims are treated in our system, especially like the seniors that were all traumatized by this action.
Most of the stolen jewelry was sold to a gold buyer and could not be recovered. The province says if restitution isn't paid, victims can make a claim in civil court to try to get the money. Nearly 4,000 Manitobans made insolvency filings last year. It is the highest number of consumer insolvencies in the last decade. Tanya Reynolds is a licensed insolvency trustee with MNP Limited in Winnipeg. She has helped people file consumer proposals and bankruptcies.
Nobody's excited to walk through the doors generally, but the feeling of relief that we're told and we can see on their face once they know that there's an option for them out there to manage it is, that's just kind of what makes our job most successful.
More than 1,000 Manitobans made insolvency filings in just the first 3 months of this year. To London.
I will resign as leader of the Labour Party. I have spoken to His Majesty the King this morning to inform him of my decision.
Keir Starmer is resigning as the UK's Prime Minister. He made that announcement outside 10 Downing Street this morning. His chief rival, Andy Burnham, won a crucial parliamentary by-election on Friday, clearing the way for a direct leadership challenge. Starmer's polling numbers have tumbled. He could not recover from the vetting scandal around Peter Mandelson and the cost of living crisis. A new leader is expected to be in place by September. Keir Starmer is the 6th British Prime Minister to step down in the past 7 years. Back in this country, to central Alberta, several communities are under water advisories after heavy rainfall pushed wastewater systems above capacity. People living in Beaumont, Leduc County, and St. Albert, just outside Edmonton, are being urged to stop all non-essential water use. That includes showering, flushing toilets, and using laundry or dishwashers. More than 100 millimeters of rain fell in Edmonton and the surrounding area over the weekend. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Well, celebrating National Indigenous Peoples Day. Hundreds at the Forks on Sunday in a showcase of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis culture. Residential school survivor Donna Green says these celebrations are key to healing and an opportunity to pass on Indigenous traditions to the next generation.
It's extremely important now is for us to not lose our languages completely, because the languages give us the history of our people. It gives us the knowledge that the older ancestors have to offer.
Yesterday marked the 30th National Indigenous Peoples Day. It's celebrated every June 21st to coincide with the summer solstice. And the biggest turnout ever. 14,000 runners laced up their sneakers and put their best foot forward for yesterday's Manitoba Marathon. Winnipegger Janine Zajac was the women's winner of the full marathon for a second straight year. She says on the last few kilometers, she was able to find her rhythm and push ahead.
I ran Boston in April. Wasn't the race that I had dreamt of, and so to be able to come out and run a personal best today, it just like I said, all the hard work, all the miles, all the time, it makes it so worth it.
And Calgary-based runner Ngeso Nyafaro Tuse won the men's full marathon. You can find the latest news and all the marathon winners. All you have to do is head to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
It was a personal best kind of weather out there yesterday. It was so nice out.
Kind of perfect for running, right?
Perfect. Maybe a little bit more cloud cover because it got a little sunny there a little while, but it was just like, it was so crisp and cool out there. It was lovely. We were out there cheering folks on around the kilometer 17 mark or so, and it was great.
And your son was liking it, hey?
Oh yeah, he was. I taught him to just stand there with his arm out, and then he started getting high fives, and he was obsessed. He loved getting high fives. So if you were there and there was you high fived a 3-year-old, thank you very much, around the 17K mark. He got so into it, his arm was getting so tired, he was trying to hold it up so he can maximize as many high fives as he could. I've never seen him do something for 5 minutes straight before. I know, he loved it. Yeah, he had a lot of fun. So congrats to all the runners. Very exciting. Great day. So thanks very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. I'm Corey Funk in for Marcy Marcusa, and this is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Let's check in with Abby Adiemi now with a look at your weather. I know there's a special weather statement in effect.
Yeah, we have that distinct regional split as we are seeing this special weather statement, which is warning of heavy rainfalls and storms tonight through Tuesday for parts of southern Manitoba. We're looking at this system stretching from Brandon over into Minnedosa and the Riding Mountain area, and we'll see it push towards the Morden, Port La Prairie, and even the Morden Winkler area. Heavy rain will be bringing lots of water. We're talking about 10 to 40 millimeters in a short amount of time. So expect some tricky driving conditions tonight and early tomorrow morning. Just keep an eye on the sky and be ready for a very wet couple of days ahead. But for the Red River Valley region today, we're seeing more like a windy mix of sun and clouds alongside some humidity. Temperature is currently sitting around 13 degrees at the Forks. It's going to be hovering around 13, 14 for most of the morning for the area. We're looking at a daytime high of 21 before the clouds would get thick tonight, and we'll see temperatures just cool to about 13, setting the stage for tomorrow. We're going to see some rain in the city and probably some heavy downpours and thunderstorms. But across other regions down south, we're seeing similar conditions locked under cloudy skies at this time. Temperatures holding steady between 10 and 12 degrees. You look at the Pembina Valley region, we're seeing 10 degrees around the Morden Winkler area. And then if you go towards the Gimli area, we're seeing temperatures climbing towards 21, currently around 10, 11 degrees in that area. The Westman region sitting around 11 at this time. And for the Parkland region, we should be seeing about temperatures close to 14 degrees in that part of the province. You look up north, temperatures just hovering from 7 degrees around Norway House to 13 around the Thompson area. And then for the Power Flame Flon, similar conditions. Their highs would be between 21 and 23. Lynn Lake to Doodle Lake, we're looking at 8 and 10 degrees in that part of the province, warming to 22. While for the Churchill area, we're seeing 9 degrees there, a high of 13 under just some mild northeastern winds. But for Winnipeg, we are at 12, 13 degrees at this time. We only get to 21 today.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Sierra Sanders in with a look at your commute. Hello.
Hi, Corey. It's been pretty quiet on the commuter line so far this morning. So to me, it sounds like your early morning Monday commute is looking pretty smooth out there, which is great. But also some good news out there. I don't know if you heard, but the Manitoba Trail is officially open.
Yes, I know they put a lot of work into
Yeah,
there
I have
month
some
or so.
stats from the province of Manitoba, actually, that I can quickly read out.
Sure.
So it sounds like a team of 23 volunteers. They traveled about 1,885 kilometers by foot and paddle to complete this critical restoration work. And that included clearing and brushing the entire 64-kilometer trail. They established a new 100-meter connector to the West Caribou Lake campsite. They cleared about 10 campsites of hazardous trees and established 11 new helipads for emergency access.
Wow.
And they cleared about 10 portages, which totaled about 8.85 kilometers, and installed approximately 700 new trail markers and repurposing an additional 500 from fallen trees. And it sounds like they constructed 12 new log bridges across wet areas and creek crossings and installed a new climbing rope at the Ray Creek Climb.
You know, I've hiked it, and I also did some trail work on it about 10 years ago. And that trail is a beast, not only to hike, but to maintain. try to keep up those 64 kilometers. It's wild. So congrats to all those volunteers who went out there and pulled that off.
Yeah,
really
and
wild.
I think they opened it earlier than they thought they were going to. So
Great. I mean, it went from its worst condition ever, seems like, to
It's best.
potentially its best. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's exciting to see. Well, thank you very much. You going to go hike it this weekend now?
Probably not, but I guess I should remind folks of the number to call if there is something, whether you're out on a trail, I don't know, or whether you're here in Winnipeg or the surrounding area. Give me a call if something's up on your commute, 204-788-3093.
I'd love to hear about a traffic jam on the Manitoba. That'd be great. Thank you very much. That's Sierra Sanders, your studio director, and keeping an eye on your commute. Well, 6:40 right now, and let's check in now with Crystalie Ramlacan with a look at your business report. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Corey.
So we're going to get the latest reading today on how much things are costing. So what are we expecting?
Yes, that's right. So Statistics Canada will release its latest inflation numbers today. Now, high gas prices are expected to push inflation higher. Economists predict annual inflation rose to 3% in May from the 2.8% we saw in April. But even though gas prices rose, oil prices have since come off their highs after the U.S. and Iran struck a memorandum of understanding to try to bring an end to the war and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. So the devil will be in the details as economists look for any signs that the price at the pump is causing inflation to heat up elsewhere in the economy. And the Bank of Canada, which has a 2% target for inflation, has said there has been limited evidence, though, of broad-based pass-through of higher energy prices. So, to the cost of other things so far. And the central bank has said it is continuing to look through the impact of the war in the Middle East, but noted it will not let higher energy prices become persistent in inflation. Of course, it has interest rates that it can use to try to tamp down inflation. And the Bank of Canada's next interest rate decision is set for July 15th.
Let's talk about labor news now. The union for nearly 19,000 Canadian auto workers is kicking off contract talks with Ford today. So what else do we know about that?
Yes, so it's the first of the Detroit 3 automakers to sit down to hammer out new collective agreements. So current deals signed by the automakers and Unifor 3 years ago are set to expire in September. And the latest round of bargaining comes during difficult conditions for the sector as it copes with U.S. tariffs, uncertainty linked to the future of CUSMA, and the introduction of Chinese electric vehicles into Canada. Now, Unifor, which typically uses pattern bargaining for its auto sector negotiations, will go toe-to-toe with Ford first, just as it did 3 years ago. And then talks with Stellantis and General Motors are expected to follow. So Unifor says this is the most consequential round of auto bargaining it's ever done in its history. It says if the tariff situation is not able to be resolved, along with a path forward through the CUSMA review, it will have massive long-term implications for the Canadian auto industry. And the union says job security is paramount, along with getting investments in plants. Now, for Ford, both stability and flexibility are key as it contends with an evolving landscape. It says rising costs, new competitors, and shifting product demand are reshaping its considerations around potential investments.
And changing gears here for our last story, Hollywood is having its best box office since before the pandemic. What's going on there?
Yes, that's right. So a resurgent year at the box office hit new heights this weekend as Disney's Toy Story 5 opened to an estimated $312 million globally, the second best debut ever for a Pixar animated film. Now, domestically, the sequel launched with $160 million, making it the biggest opening for any film in the U.S. and Canada since a Minecraft movie in April of last year. Is this something that you think you might take your kids to, Corey?
My mom actually said, hey, I'd love to take your kiddos. They're 3. They're like right on the, like my oldest is 3. So he's like right on the edge of like, maybe he could last the full 95 minutes. We were like looking into it. Maybe could be a disaster, could be great. We're like teetering, like maybe in a year.
Yes. Okay. So maybe a little bit longer for Toy Story for them. And if you can imagine it, the original Toy Story launched 31 years ago.
Wild.
And I know, I can't believe it. Now, Steven Spielberg's Disclosure Day slipped to second place in its second weekend. And, you know, many event films this year have met or exceeded the industry's expectations, including Project Hail Mary, the Super Mario Galaxy movie, Michael, and The Devil Wears Prada 2. And the past few weeks have also seen two low-budget horror movies, Backrooms and Obsession, become unanticipated blockbusters. So the total domestic box office so far this year is estimated at more than $4 billion, the highest since 2019. Of course, inflation has played a role, but not as much as growing attendance. But, you know, receipts are still below the late 2010s. Many in the industry believe that they will never get back to the heights of that era when mega franchises like The Avengers, Star Wars, and The Fast and Furious consistently succeeded. And for the past few years, despite blockbusters like Top Gun Maverick and a Minecraft movie, the industry has frequently gone weeks without a hit. And many in the industry attribute this year's boom to the fact that Hollywood has released more movies than in any year since 2019.
Oh, fascinating. Well, thank you very much, Crystalie.
Okay, thanks, Corey.
That was Crystalie Ramlakan with your business news. Well, as you heard in the news, runners of all ages took to the streets of Winnipeg for the Manitoba Marathon. It was the 48th running of the Father's Day tradition, and it might have been the biggest yet. CBC's Gavin Axelrod was there.
Rachel Monday, and I'm the Executive Director of the Manitoba Marathon. I feel great. It's a beautiful day, 14,000 runners, our largest Manitoba Marathon ever. Great energy. Just a sea of people, lots of excitement. Yeah, it's a great morning. We've been talking for the last few years about a running boom. There's obviously a surge in running. Such a great sport, so inclusive and accessible. And, you know, sorry, I think one of our winners is coming in. Yeah, you know, like we're seeing such a surge in running, and it's a diverse group, it's a young group. It's everybody. It's just really exciting to see, like, people want to run, people are running races, they're supporting the community, and it's not even just runners, it's people out on the course and run crews and cheer stations and all of those things. It's a lot of energy and excitement.
How many people today are like first timers at this event?
70%. 70% of the people running today are running an event for the first time, which is also very exciting.
Is that like a high number for you guys, or like usual?
Yeah, I would say, like, you know, not that you like to dwell on, but like pre-COVID, it was about 50-50 generally. But of course, now we're seeing a lot of new runners. A lot of people are running distances that they've never run before. So a lot of halves and fulls that are running their first, you know, full or half or whatever that might be. So yeah, it's very, say it again, just a really exciting time. Marathon puts on 8 other races a year. We put on a lot of smaller community races, trying to take the, the feeling of intimidation away. People are thinking marathon day, you know, I can't do that. But and by doing smaller races throughout the year, we're trying to reach out to people and get them, you know, running a 5K or a 10K and getting them out on race day, you know, for the big celebration.
Dasha Gaulish.
How are you feeling?
I mean, I'm a little tired. How are you?
I'm not bad. How was your run today?
It was amazing. Like, what a special place on a really special day. We're on Treaty 1. I got to run the land as Tarrant Crosschild kicked us off with. The crowds here are amazing. It's my first half marathon in, I think, 3 years. It might be 4 years since I've been here. It's really special to be here. It hurt from the start. I haven't raced in a long time, and it was awesome.
So to be, like, not race for that long and to, like, be the first to cross this line, how does that feel?
A place of privilege. Like, I recognize that I carry some talent. I work really hard, like so many other people. It's a big surprise if I'm being, like, authentically honest. But I'm really proud of my effort today.
You've probably been running for a while, but they said today like 70% of people are like new to running. What do you make of that?
I think it's amazing. What a boost, you know, in a sport that's so accessible. We know that 80% of the world is not meeting physical activity guidelines. I hope that this inspires others. I don't want people to think they have to show up and run a 5K, 10K, half marathon, marathon. I want them to know that whatever running or moving is for them is what it is. And, like, come out and cheer if you don't feel comfortable running the event, but run or walk or bike to the event and move your body in some way. So I hope it inspires a whole lot of Canadians to get out and try a new sport. So coming through the stadium there, it's don't fall, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. Like, it's a pretty steep decline on pavement. I went through a lot of memories. I went through like a lot of just dig deep, push hard, grab that banner, smile so hard, and celebrate your accomplishment for the day.
Were you running for anyone in specific?
Terrence Crosschild, who did our land acknowledgement. I feel really grateful that I met him a few years ago pacing him, and just his story is so inspiring for so many Indigenous kids, and I hope they kind of follow him on social media and follow his path.
That's Sasha Golan. She was the first female finisher in the half marathon yesterday. She was speaking with CBC's Gavin Axelrod. Well, time now is 6:50 here on Information Radio, and we're going to talk a bit about the weather, because that's pretty much all everyone's been talking about all the month of June. We're now officially into summer, with the summer solstice happening yesterday, and this year it could have been even hotter than usual. That's because there's a chance we're on the verge of experiencing a super El Nino. And here with more is David Phillips. He's an emeritus climatologist with Environment and Climate Change Canada. Good morning.
Good morning, Corey.
So just recap for us here. What is just a regular El Nino? I think people forget.
Yeah, well, it's been around for a long time and for centuries, really. And it's not a storm, Corey. It's not human caused. You can't blame it on people. But it's sort of a natural interaction exchange that occurs between the oceans and the atmosphere. And that really drives a lot of the weather. And so it occurs, I mean, my gosh, 6,000 kilometers away from Winnipeg in the eastern tropics of the Pacific Ocean, off the coast of Ecuador and Peru. The water there, when it is actually a half a degree, say a degree warmer than it normally would be, and it lasts for, say, a few months, it's declared to be El Nino, regular El Nino. But when it gets to be really warm, like 2 degrees warmer than normal, well, then it's said to be a major. Now, super, we've never used that word. It's not my word, or Godzilla-like is not also my word, but it really means that the water temperature between the app and what's normal and what actually is there is really tilted high. It's like 3 degrees plus, and that has a profound effect on the weather. So it's occurring in one little region of the world, but Corey, it's affecting the weather. Oh my gosh, the Indian monsoon is failing now because of El Nino. The droughts in Australia coming out of their winter is now into their next season. For them it is it's causing real problems. So for us though, Corey, it affects really our winters. We have to wait for it, and the jet stream gets further north, get more Pacific air, and so when you have an El Nino, and especially a strong one, it's not canceling winter, but it's certainly making it soft and more open.
Okay, so we're not in El Nino season yet, because I'm sure a lot of Manitobans right now, we've had such a rainy June. This has nothing to do with that right now.
No, absolutely not. What a month. I mean, that's been the big story weather-wise across the country, are all those rains in western Man, the riding area, the Dauphin, and also northwest of Winnipeg, just storm after storm. I mean, my gosh, this is truly, yet there are some parts of the province in the southwest that could use some rain. So it's almost as if like the storm begets the storm. So, hey, that's been the big story, and hopefully, but June is normally your wettest month of the year. So June is just performing like it normally does. But El Nino is more winter-like. And let me give you an example of that for Winnipeg. I think it's really interesting, because I always believe the past is a guide to the future. So if you look at the last strong El Nino we had, which is 23-24, I'll tell you what the winter was like in Winnipeg. Well, first of all, you had maybe a little bit more than half of your normal snowfall. The cold days, that often marks what your definition of winter is. You normally have 52 of those suckers when the temperature falls below -20. That winter, you had 16 of those. The only cold month was March, so temperatures were averaged about 6 degrees warmer than normal, and even in the entire province. When you look at the last 3 major El Ninos that occurred, the Manitoba was the warmest in 80 years it had ever been, the second warmest in another one, and I think it was the sixth warmest in another. So the dice are clearly loaded to say, hey, this winter, if it performs like previous El Niños, is going to be milder than normal.
And how long could this last for? Could this be multiple winters, or is this kind of usually a one-off, kind of one season thing?
Good point. We have seen El Niños, they normally last 9 to 12 months. So they begin about now in the sort of the spring, early summer. They peak in the fall, our fall and winter, and then they die out probably next spring. But interesting point, Corey, is that because the oceans are warmer, that the heat doesn't really leave. In fact, a lot of climatologists are saying that when we look globally, and the warmest temperature we ever had was during an El Nino globally, that this will likely be not this summer that will be the warmest, but next summer, 2027 globally, might be the warmest summer on record. And so it takes a little while. A residual heat, a lag effect will make certainly next winter and spring. And of course, it tends to, what it does also from a negative point of view, it tends to produce more forest fires because you don't have the snowpack is gone quickly. You don't have the water necessarily, so there's more drought issues. And then forest fires get going sooner in the spring. So there are winners and losers with this. And people who love winter, well, they have to sit one off the side. People who don't like winter are saying, it's about time we had one where we could say, winter's never canceled in here in the second coldest country in the world and the snowiest, but it tends to make it a little tamer than it was, that it normally is.
And before I let you go here, how much of this has to do with climate change?
Good point. There was a poll done by the New York Times. They interviewed 16 climatologists. 8 said it directly is affected by climate change. It is making the world is warmer in the last decade, and we've had more super El Niños, so there's clear evidence. But others are not so sure. And I remember one year, we had one, because it's not just the climate that brings you El Nino, if that's a factor. In fact, I remember one year, 91, 92, Corey, it was supposed to be an El Nino year, a warm year, that kind of thing. It was one of the coldest because Pinatubo, a volcano in Indonesia, erupted, and it shielded the world from the sun, and we had a colder than normal season. So El Nino is not the only thing that creates our winters.
So don't rush to Polymarket to place a bet on a warm Winnipeg winter at this point.
That's right. Good point. Oh, I love that. Thank you, Corey.
Well, thank you, Phil, David. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome, Corey. Bye-bye.
That is David Phillips, an emeritus climatologist with Environment and Climate Change Canada. 6:57 right now, and still to come this next hour on Information Radio. Winnipeg's mayoral race is starting to heat up, and with some old faces and newcomers signing up to run for the city's top spot, we're going to talk to a public polling expert about the mayoral field so far, which includes a TikTok comedian. That's coming up after World Report. Right now, though, let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, nearly 4,000 Manitobans made insolvency filings last year. It is the highest number in the last decade. Mark Kalinowski is a financial educator at Credit Counseling Society, and he says it's not surprising Manitobans are struggling with debt at a time when the world is unsettling and the cost of living has gone up dramatically. The biggest turnout ever. 14,000 runners laced up and put their best foot forward for yesterday's Manitoba Marathon. Organizers say about 70% of the people taking part were doing it for the very first time. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That's Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. Commute so far looking pretty tame. Haven't heard of any major issues yet out there on the commuter line. But if you do want to give Sierra a call, the number 204-788-3093. Right now, Winnipeg, we're sitting at 13, heading for a high today of 21. Southwestern Manitoba is under a special weather statement. You can expect some rain starting tonight into Tuesday, with about 10 to 40 millimeters, all the way from Headingley down to Boissevain, everywhere in between, including Brandon. So some wet weather ahead for much of southwestern Manitoba, and including Winnipeg as well. We'll get some details for you more on that coming up after 7. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. We'll be back after World Report. Stay tuned.
On The Current.
There are more than 22,000 condos forecast to be completed this year in the Greater Toronto Area.
Thousands of condos are sitting empty in big cities, even as this country faces a housing crisis. The mismatch between tiny spaces and where Canadians actually want to live, and what developers and investors are doing to solve that, coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Canada's Transportation Minister is expected to release the findings of extensive consultations on the new Alto high-speed rail line today. CBC News has confirmed Steve McKinnon is directing the Crown Corp to make a significant course correction following some strong negative public feedback about the original route. Janice McGregor is in our Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, what are we about to learn?
Marcia, the original Alto route did not cut through Kingston, where the minister is today. The first plan publicly released was to head north from Toronto to Peterborough, then cut across central Ontario to Ottawa, and then onwards to Montreal. Kingston, however, is a significant stop for existing Via Rail service. It's closer to more population centres in eastern Ontario. And from the mayor of Kingston on down, the pressure was on the federal government to reconsider. And now apparently Stephen McKinnon has. CBC News has obtained a statement from the Transport Minister, originally published in the Toronto Star this morning, that says, based on the voices of Canadians and communities across the corridor, he's directed Alto to develop a southern route option that includes a potential stop in Kingston, subject to technical feasibility and project requirements. Alto's always said it needs a route that moves in a relatively straight line in order for this train to be able to move at its intended high speeds. We're still a long way from knowing exactly which parcels of land are going to be affected. The first stretch, of course, planned for construction is the Ottawa to Montreal part.
But protesters are concerned about more than just the route.
Yeah, if you've driven through Eastern Ontario recently, you've probably seen the no to Alto or no signs littered across the countryside. Farmers especially concerned about the route encroaching on productive agricultural land, cutting off access to properties, because unlike slower trains, high-speed rail has to be all fenced in. Radio Canada this morning is confirming a report in La Presse that some of the land heading into Montreal is going to be property that was already partially expropriated around the Mirabel Airport. Alto says it's committed to avoiding environmentally sensitive areas, but whether the route heads north or south out of Toronto, those concerns aren't going to go away.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. Keir Starmer has resigned as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. This comes just 2 years after leading the Labour Party to a landslide election win. Starmer succumbed to a coordinated push from his own MPs to step aside. His departure sets the stage for Britain to welcome its 7th Prime Minister in just under 10 years. Anna Cunningham reports from London.
Walking up this street 2 years ago was the proudest moment of my life.
After a weekend of speculation, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, the man who took the Labour Party to a landslide victory in July 2024, announced his decision.
I will resign as leader of the Labour Party. I have spoken to His Majesty the King this morning to inform him of my decision.
In the wake of bruising nationwide local election results last month, Starmer rapidly lost the confidence of his cabinet ministers and governing MPs. He said he will leave office after a new Labour leader who will become Prime Minister is selected.
I will remain in post as Prime Minister until the contest is complete.
Despite efforts to move Britain closer to Europe, renewing ties with Canada and his support for Ukraine, the British Prime Minister's downfall is marked by a failure of domestic politics. There has been a series of policy U-turns, questions too about his judgment, in particular his appointing a close friend of Jeffrey Epstein, Peter Mandelson, as UK ambassador to the US. The governing Labour Party is fully aware that it faces opposition in the form of growing support for the populist, hard right-leaning Reform Party. It believes it can only retain power with a change in leadership.
I shall spend more time on the most important job, being the best husband I can to my fantastic wife, Vic, who has been a rock by my side through good times and bad.
Starmer is now the shortest-serving Labour Prime Minister in history. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
J.D. Vance says a lot of good progress has been made in talks to end the Iran-U.S. war. The vice president is the lead negotiator for the U.S. during the first round of high-level talks in Switzerland.
We've laid a successful foundation to get to a good place for the American people. I think it's important for all of us to appreciate how much was done, but honestly, there is still a lot to do.
The two sides have agreed on a roadmap to end the conflict within 60 days. Vance says lower-level technical talks will continue, meeting over the next coming weeks. The mediation effort started Sunday and stretched into the early hours of today. Vance says there has been progress in resolving passage through the Strait of Hormuz and the future of the Iran nuclear program. On Lebanon, Vance says a mechanism is being set up to resolve the conflict between Israel and Iran-backed Hezbollah. They are not taking part in the peace talks. Health authorities in the Democratic Republic of Congo say the number of confirmed Ebola cases has now surpassed 1,000. More than 250 people have died. The outbreak was declared mid-May. Contact tracing remains a big challenge. Officials have only tracked about 55% of those who may have been exposed to the virus. They say they still need to trace more than 35,000 people. A candidate endorsed by Donald Trump has won Colombia's presidential election.
Colombia, aquí está tu presidente.
Abelardo de la Espriella greets his supporters after initial results are released. They still need to be verified, but they point to a razor-thin win over the leftist candidate. De la Espriella is a right-wing political outsider. This is his first time running for any public office. He campaigned on getting tough on crime, building mega prisons, and ending peace talks with Colombia's rebel groups. De la Espriella is also holds U.S. citizenship and is a Trump supporter. A weekend downpour has triggered municipal emergency alerts across central Alberta. Some cities are ordering residents to reduce water use. The wastewater systems are overflowing from rain. As Stephanie Cram reports, forecasters are raising concerns about flooding.
This morning we had 56 plus now 19, so that's 75 millimeters so far. Holy macaronis, man, that's a lot of water.
That's Christina DeGagne of Nature's Acres in Westlock, Alberta, just north of Edmonton. The town issued an advisory asking residents to reduce water use because the wastewater system had reached capacity. Over the weekend, a deluge of rain hit Edmonton and surrounding areas, including Beaumont, a city to the south.
This morning, we started receiving reports of some homes having backups into their basements. We also have storm ponds that are well past their capacity.
That's Mike Berezowski, Director of Communications for Beaumont. The city issued an emergency alert asking people to significantly reduce their water use.
If you have laundry or dishes that need to be done, please hold off for the next little while. Take a short shower.
To the north, the city of St. Albert also issued an emergency alert.
It's looking more and more likely that Edmonton could set a June monthly all-time record.
That's weather specialist Kyle Britton. He says Edmonton alone has seen up to 150% more rain in the month of June. The worry now is the risk of flooding.
The area of greatest concern right now is the area that's already wet. They aren't going to have much capacity to absorb water.
He says central Alberta could see more rain in the coming days, meaning the area is on its way to setting records. Stephanie Cram, CBC News, Edmonton.
Statistics Canada will release the latest inflation numbers this morning. The war in Iran and the related energy crisis are pushing up energy prices. Peter Armstrong reports.
Anyone who's visited a gas station recently knows two things. One, prices are down from the peak, and two, they're still way above where they were before the beginning of the U.S. and Israeli war with Iran. So far, the surge in inflation has been largely contained to the energy sector.
But the pain at the pump is really just the beginning.
That's Jim Stanford, economist and director of the Center for Future Work. He says the concern is that the cost of higher energy eventually seeps into the cost of producing everything else.
And then those producers start to pass on their higher costs in the form of price increases, for everything from transportation to groceries to manufacturing to construction.
That kind of broad-based inflation is much harder to rein in. The kind of thing Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem warned about earlier this month.
If energy prices
stay high, we will not let their effects become broad-based, persistent inflation.
So watch today's numbers, not just for the headline rate, but for evidence that inflation is starting to spill over into other, harder to contain sectors. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. It is right now in Winnipeg, 13 degrees at the Forks, heading for a high of 21, but some very rainy weather ahead, particularly for southwestern Manitoba starting this evening. We're going to get the details coming up. Also, this hour on the show, Manitoba is seeing the highest number of insolvency filings in a decade. Thousands of people filed in 2025 alone. We're going to hear from a CBC reporter who dug into the debt and its impacts. Also, this hour on the show, we've chosen our next set of winners heading to the Sea Bears game on June 30th. And we still want to hear your Bear stories for your chance to win. We're going to hear their stories and find out how you can submit coming up at 7:45. Also, stay tuned. Just ahead here, Winnipeg's mayoral race is starting to heat up with some old faces and newcomers signing up to run for the city's top spot. So we're going to talk to a public polling expert about the mayoral field so far. Stay tuned for that. Right now, though, 7:11, let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, the family of a woman whose rings were stolen off her finger while she was in a personal care home is still fighting for restitution more than 7 years later. Anna Mercado pleaded guilty to stealing rings and jewelry in 2019 from 8 residents while she was a healthcare aide at Kildonan Care Home. She was given a 1-year jail sentence and ordered to pay restitution. Well, Carla Sly is the daughter of one of the victims, and she says the court required her to collect the restitution. She says it feels like victimizing the victim again. Hundreds gathered at the Forks to celebrate National Indigenous Peoples Day yesterday, a showcase of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis culture. Residential school survivor Donna Green says these celebrations are key to healing. We'll hear more in our next news coming up at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
It's Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. Abby Adeyemi is in with a look at your weather. Hello.
Hello, Corey. The province actually starts in the week with that brief, bright spell before we're going to see the significant rain system bringing downpours towards parts of southern Manitoba. Hence this special weather statement we have, which is warning of heavy rain and thunderstorms spreading east tonight through Tuesday across parts of the Pembina Valley region into the Westman region, close to the Parkland region. We're talking about 10 to 40 millimeters of downpour, while the north still remains dry under a mix of sun and cloudy conditions. Here in the Red River Valley region, we're looking at a mix of sun and clouds to start. We're going to see our seasonal highs close to 22 degrees. We're going to get to 21 in the city. Current temperatures right now, we're looking at 12 and 13 degrees in the city, depending on where you are. We will really be hovering around this 12, close to 14 degrees before we hit our daily high of 21 today. And then tomorrow we have a wet Tuesday. And similar conditions we're seeing across the south. 11s to 13s, that's what we're seeing from the Pembina Valley region, stretching all the way to the Parkland region this morning, where Gimli is enjoying a mix of sun and clouds, and Dauphin towards the Russell area, we're seeing partly cloudy conditions at 13 at this time. Up north, beautiful mild sunny temperatures in some areas. We're looking at 11s to 15s up north this morning. And even in Churchill area, where we've been seeing single digits, Churchill is at 11 this morning, and we'll definitely enjoy some sunshine today. But Winnipeg, 13 right now, cloudy. We're going to see a mix of sun and clouds before we get a high of 21 later today.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Sierra Sanders is in with a look at your commute. Good morning.
Hi, Corey. I got a call from Esther, and she called to let me know first that southbound McPhillips was moving really, really slow. We couldn't quite figure out what might have been causing that backup, but she called me back and she said that the lights are flashing red in all directions at Inkster and McPhillips. So that is causing some backups there. Sounds like it is moving very, very slow through there. So you want to keep that in mind. Inkster and McPhillips lights are flashing red in all direction, and it is slowing things down there. As well, a couple of things to note, just a little bit of an alert. Northbound Pembina Highway, there's an exit ramp closure there. So northbound Pembina Highway to eastbound Abinogi-Mikina, the exit ramp will be fully closed until August 3rd. So you need to follow the posted detour through there. I know there's already a lot of construction going on in that area. Just when we thought, I used to live in that area, and just when you thought all that construction was done there, nope, it's continuing there. So some exit ramp closures there. As well, just another reminder, St. John Ambulance Way, there's a closure there. So all northbound lanes of that street, St. John Ambulance Way, between Empress Street East to Portage Avenue will be closed for water work until July 3rd. So no access to Portage Avenue East there. So you want to use alternate routes. So a couple things there to keep in mind, but if there's something new that pops up on your drive, I'd love to hear about it. Give me a call. The number's 204-788-3093.
7:15 right now, and next up here on Information Radio, Winnipeg's mayoral race is ramping up with 8 candidates registered, including a TikTok comedian. And candidates can register up until late September, but many will throw their hats in the ring in the coming weeks, and giving them plenty of time for campaigning, fundraising, and events. Now that the race is underway, what are Winnipeggers looking to see in the next mayor? Well, Curtis Brown has his finger on the pulse. He's a principal with Probe Research, a company that specializes in public polling, and he joins me now to talk about what he's hearing. Hello there, Curtis.
Hi, Corey. Thanks for having me.
So let's just start with the incumbent, Mayor Scott Gillingham. He's running for re-election. So how are people feeling about his leadership right now?
It's a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest. Most of the mayoral candidates, especially someone who's been the mayor for the last 4 years, they almost always get reelected. That goes back to basically the 1950s. Scott Gillingham, though, as he enters this first reelection campaign, we did some polling recently for the Free Press, and we found that people aren't super enthusiastic about his leadership. Only about 1 in 5 Winnipeggers want to see him as continuous mayor for another 4 years. Almost half want to see someone else, and then the rest, everyone else, is a pretty large number, about 1/3 of Winnipeggers are unsure. And the thing is, Scott Gillingham didn't come into office, with a huge groundswell of support. He narrowly won in a crowded race. He won less than 30% of the vote. So I mean, just sort of based on those numbers alone, and also just kind of the broader mood of the city and some of the issues that people are concerned about, Winnipeggers are in a bit of a grim mood in terms of how they see the city. And so under normal circumstances, those would not be great indicators for someone seeking re-election. However, we haven't seen, even though there have been a number of candidates who've registered, we haven't really seen anyone who's really going to be really clearly a threat, who might, be able to really take some, take a significant amount of support. We'll obviously be measuring this a fair bit in the next little while, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens here in the, as we kind of move into the next phase of the campaign, whether other candidates run or whether they sense that maybe they would have an opportunity to win the mayoral race. Because I think right now, Scott Gillingham's chances probably aren't too bad, but there definitely are some warning signs for sure.
And do you think politicians in general have a shorter shelf life than maybe they once did, just because of a more charged political climate right now, where people are just kind of generally dissatisfied with government?
Yeah, I do think that candidates, and we live in, the way that politics is, tends to be very leader-centric. It's very focused often on mayors or premiers or, the party leaders, as opposed to kind of the broader party piece. Yeah, they do tend to, I think, drop a little bit faster in terms of public support. Often at the same time, though, we do see that sometimes people are looking for stability and security and that kind of thing, and in a situation where maybe things aren't going so well. It just really kind of depends, whether they sort of reach that point where they think, okay, you know what, there is an alternative, and I'd rather try that as opposed to what we have. The other thing, though, to keep in mind, I think, is that municipal politics is different, I think, than at other levels of government, and it is very, very difficult, I think, for candidates to get known. I think, even if you were to walk down the street or even phone a number of Winnipeggers, they might not necessarily know that Scott Gillingham's the mayor, or if you ask them about some other candidate, they might not know who they are. Parties and at the provincial and federal level, and also just kind of the leader brands at that, they tend to be a lot better known, or people attached to them in a campaign at the municipal level, especially at this point, where a lot of people probably aren't even really thinking about the campaign yet. It is very difficult, I think, for candidates to really get themselves known and out there, and for people to understand who they are and what they're about.
I mean, one way people might give some people candidates a one-up is social media. I know last week there was a new candidate that entered the race. His name is Johnny Calderon. He's a TikTok comedian. He uses the handle Drunk Jesus. I don't want you to necessarily go. I don't think there's been much polling on him in particular.
We've never included him in a question. No.
Yes, but but what do you think about the appetite for someone who's in general, who's maybe younger, maybe more social media savvy, a little bit different, and maybe even someone who just already has a presence on social media for that? Do you think there's appeal there to Winnipeggers potentially?
It could help. It could help to some degree, I think. I don't know how. I mean, I'm probably not quite of the Drunk Jesus's demographic, but I mean, it is something where if people do have a particularly built-in brand or following to begin with, that would certainly help their chances. And I think especially when people are kind of looking to find to sort of looking for candidates or wanting to kind of have that built in. I mean, I think the classic example, of course, is Trump, but that's at a whole other level. But I do think that when people do have a little something that they're known for outside of politics, or they're not, that isn't what their profile is. It can definitely give them a head start as opposed to other people maybe who don't have the profile or that sort of thing. In this particular case, I don't know how much, being a social media comedian will necessarily help. I mean, Jonathan Toews retired the other day, and I mean, if he was to throw his hat in the ring, not that I'm starting a rumor, but I think that would be something where people would, know who he is and be excited about that, kind of in a much, pretty broad way. But I think, in terms of municipal politics, that is the thing, is it is that much harder, and you really have to kind of have that, platform or some kind of profile. I mean, that really does help, I think, in terms of being able to kickstart that, and because at this point and over the next few months, whether it's mayoral candidates or council candidates, it's really about getting people to pay attention and get to know who you are.
Well, what's the chances, with about only maybe 3.5 months left, that we see a high-profile star candidate, put their hat in the ring in the next little while?
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. The conditions might be there, but I don't know how great the odds are. There's always, the rumor mill, and there's always, people kind of wondering, what'll happen, but there is time, right? I mean, between now and when candidates for mayor have to be registered in mid-September, there is time for someone to enter the race and potentially build a campaign. So we'll see what happens. I think at this point, it's really, I'm sure there'll be a lot of conversations and thought about this over the summer. I'm sure the Gillingham campaign will be, doing what it needs to do to try to make sure that they're ready for the fall and before the race. But that is one of the unique and interesting things about municipal politics compared to provincial and federal. It's just that long window and all these different kind of phases of the campaign, as opposed to a provincial or federal race where it's like 30 some days and that's it, it's over.
And is there anything notable or anything that stands out about the other people who are on the ballot so far?
Well, we've seen some of them before, right? Don Woodstock, Chris Clascio, some of them have run for mayor in the past. Mike Wojciechowski, it's interesting because I do think that, he didn't have a great deal of support. But but I think some of the things that kind of constitute, his message around, lower taxes and some of those sorts of things, I think that's somewhere where Scott Gillingham is also potentially vulnerable. Like when we look at the data, I think, when we look at, it's a lot of conservative supporters, it's older voters. I mean, they're the ones who are more likely to want someone else to be mayor. And I think, for someone who kind of, is in that lane and takes some of those messages, there's some potential there for them, I think, in terms of, being able to talk about that and being able to, have support from folks who are looking, maybe not happy that property taxes, water rates have gone up. They want more funding for police. They want more to be done about crime. I mean, those are some of the issues and concerns that they have. But I think we also know from other campaigns is that kind of, populist right of center message, there's certainly an appetite amongst Winnipeggers, some Winnipeggers for it, but it does have a bit of a ceiling. And, when you look at, past mayoral election campaigns, the candidates who kind of, hit those messages pretty hard, they tend to top out around like 20, maybe 25% support at most. So there's a constituency there for it, but I think, it might not be enough to necessarily carry someone to win.
Well, Curtis, thank you for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Curtis Brown is a principal with Probe Research. Well, still to come here on Information Radio.
Keep it car free so the kids can play. Car free to scoot and skate and ride. Car free so we all.
Coming up, we're going to talk about how Corden Avenue in Winnipeg is about to experience what San Francisco musician John Elliott was singing about, going car free on Sundays this summer. We're going to speak with Gino DeStasio from the University of Winnipeg about that. That's coming up here on Information Radio. Right now, though, time for morning sports with Scott Reguer. Good morning.
Hey, Corey.
So it's a country steeped in history, and Egypt made some more last night on the soccer pitch.
They did. The Pharaohs, as they're known, managed a first-ever World Cup win, which came in Vancouver in front of 50,000 plus against New Zealand. Now, things didn't start well, Corey, for the Egyptians. They went down before halftime, but their coach, Hossam Hassan, says losing was not an option.
At halftime, I told the team, we're not going back out there unless we are winning. This stadium has been really loud. How dare we upset those fans here? I wouldn't be able to live with it if we hadn't gotten this win. Egyptian football has long deserved to be present at this level, yet we were late in gaining the confidence to truly compete with the big names. So to the Egyptian people, of whom I am one, I say, you deserve the best.
And this was certainly the best we've seen from the country, Corey, at a World Cup. This is the fourth time they've been in the tournament. And with global superstar Mo Salah in their lineup, pressure has only grown to realize their potential. Fittingly enough, Salah had the winning goal last night and was given an ovation befitting an Egyptian king.
Well, and actually that wasn't the only drama-filled encounter on Sunday as well, was it?
No. If you're a footy fan who enjoys the David versus Goliath narrative, then you have to appreciate what Capo Verde is doing. In their first ever World Cup match, they held maybe the planet's best team, Spain, to a draw. And then yesterday, the tiny African island nation replicated the feat, holding a past two-time World Cup champion, Uruguay, to another tie. Attending the game was Langley, BC's Dina Cabral. She's originally from Capo Verde, which is located more than 600 kilometers off of the west coast of Africa. Cabral, Corey, says the exposure the country is getting at this tournament, which is the biggest sporting event in history, is invaluable.
I want them to win a match because that would put us immediately on the map. So when people start Googling you and see the beautiful Boa Vista Island and Ilha do Sal and São Nicolau, people want to go there. It translates into what, guys? Money. Work for my people.
World Cups have led to major bumps in tourism for countries that have done well in the past, Corey. Ghana's quarterfinal run in 2010, Costa Rica's in 2014, and Morocco's semi-final appearance in 2022 all saw major spikes in international visitors a year or two after those tournaments were held. Dina Cabral's desire to see Capo Verde win a World Cup match might have seemed far-fetched before this tournament, But not anymore. The team nicknamed the Blue Sharks faces Saudi Arabia next, an opponent a lot less daunting than the ones they've already faced.
Imagine it must be the same feeling that Winnipegers felt when they heard Winnipeg mentioned on Heated Rivalry. Very exciting moment.
That's right. That's right.
Maybe not quite the same degree, but close. But close. Well, let's keep talking about World Cup. So it's match day 12 at World Cup today. What will you be watching for today?
Lots of goals. Defending champions Argentina face Austria, with Lionel Messi looking to score an historic 17th career World Cup goal, which would see him pass Germany's Miro Klose for the most all-time. But could France's Kylian Mbappe, Corey, beat Messi to the punch today? If he has a hat-trick against Iraq, he'll be the all-time leading scorer. And the way he played in his first game against Senegal, you wouldn't bet against it. If Mbappe and Messi somehow fail to tickle the twine today, there is another player who might. The sound of the Viking row, a celebration Norwegian fans have brought to this World Cup, chanting as they pull back on invisible oars from their seats. Often when star striker Erling Haaland scores, he's 6'5", has that blonde ponytail. Very imposing presence, Corey. He had a couple of goals in his World Cup debut. Could he have a couple more today against Senegal? It all starts at noon Central Time.
Well, Scott, thank you very much.
You betcha.
That is Scott Regehr with your morning sports. Well, still to come here on Information Radio, we have chosen our next set of winners heading to the Sea Bears game on June 30th. We're going to play their Bear stories, and there still is time to submit your own to win a pair of tickets to the Sea Bears game next Tuesday. We're going to play those stories coming up after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's 13 degrees. We are expecting not a bad day, a high of 21, much like yesterday, a mix of sun and clouds, and then some rain on the way tomorrow. Now, there is a special weather statement for western Manitoba and parts of central Pembina Valley area as well. Anywhere between 10 and 40 millimeters in heavy rain possible tonight through Tuesday. The family of a woman whose rings were stolen right off her finger while she was in a personal care home is still fighting for restitution more than 7 years later. Anna Mercado pleaded guilty to stealing rings and jewelry in 2019 from 8 residents while she was a healthcare aide at Kildonan Care Home. She was given a 1-year jail sentence and was ordered to pay restitution. Carla Sly is the daughter of one of the victims. She says the court required her to collect $3,800 a judge ordered Mercado to pay.
Feels like victimizing the victim again. And it's almost impossible to find out someone who's been in jail, where they've moved to. They have a right to their privacy.
Sly got some restitution, but recently had to file a civil claim to try to get the rest. She says it shouldn't be left to families to get the money. The province says once a civil claim is filed, the money could be retrieved through garnishment of wages, seizing and selling an offender's belongings, or getting a lien put on property or land. Nearly 4,000 Manitobans made insolvency filings last year. That is the highest number in the last decade. Mark Kalikowski is a financial educator at the Credit Counseling Society. He says it's not surprising many Manitobans are struggling with debt.
The world has been an unsettling place. The cost of living has gone up dramatically. There's all sorts of job pressure and tariffs. It's not been an easy time to sort of endure. And as people have built up more and more debts, their savings have reduced, and they're not feeling very, very comfortable, and they're starting to seek help.
More than 1,000 Manitobans made insolvency filings in just the first 3 months of this year. To London.
I will resign as leader of the Labour Party. I have spoken to His Majesty the King this morning to inform him of my decision.
Keir Starmer resigning as UK's Prime Minister, making the announcement outside 10 Downing Street this morning. His chief rival, Andy Burnham, won a crucial parliamentary by-election on Friday, clearing the way for a direct leadership challenge. Starmer's polling numbers have tumbled. He couldn't recover from the vetting scandal around Peter Mandelson and the cost of living crisis. A new leader is expected to be in place by September. Starmer is the sixth British Prime Minister to step down in the last 7 years. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance says a lot of good progress has been made in talks at ending the U.S.-Iran war.
We laid a very good foundation for a successful final deal. The final deal is the house. We haven't built the house, but we've laid a successful foundation to get to a good place for the American people.
The two sides have agreed on a roadmap to end the conflict within 60 days, but it's not clear if it will affect the violence in Lebanon. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Drumming and jingle dancers at the Forks. Hundreds at a powwow for National Indigenous Peoples Day. Long Plains dancer Kai Laporte says days like these are important to keep her culture alive.
That's why we're doing here today. It's passing on a tradition for our future, our little ones to grow up and dance and be proud of where they come from.
Sunday was also a day to honor the children who never returned from residential schools and those whose lives were forever changed after being forced to attend those schools. It was the biggest marathon ever. 14,000 people lacing up their shoes, pounding the pavement at yesterday's Manitoba Marathon. George Stasiuk was in the mix. At 89 years old, he says he still has lots left in the tank, and he wants others to get involved. Stasiuk finished the 10K with a little hop and a smile.
If I could do it at 89, anybody can do it. I started at 75, so lots of people have lots of time.
Wow. Organizers say about 70% of people who took part yesterday were people in the race for the very first time. You can find more on the Manitoba Marathon winners and the rest of the news as it's updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
If I could still be running a 10K at 89. Oh.
You know what? And it wasn't just, he's done half marathons. It's amazing that he's 89 and he got started, as he said, at 75.
Inspiring. That's great. And you know what I loved yesterday? So we were cheering on runners yesterday. We were around the 17K mark or so. And so there, if you know how the marathon works, there's pacers. There's people with signs that say that if you want to run like it in 3:30 or something, follow me. And there's pacers. It goes all the way up to about 4 hours. But then at the very, very end, I just want to give a shout out to the woman holding the sign. I think this is part of the marathon that said party pace. And she had a tutu on, and she was a pacer, but it was party pace. We're going to go slow. We're going to get it done. We're going to take our time. There's a bunch of people with her, and shout out to all the people running the party pace yesterday. Like, it's almost more impressive, the people who sign up, knowing that it's going to take them
most of the day
to get it done. That is a feat of endurance in its own right. So shout out to everyone who ran the party pace in the marathon yesterday.
People are incredible. That's wonderful.
It is incredible. So thank you very much, Heather.
Thanks.
That is Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. Let's check in with Abby with a look at your weather.
Yeah, Corey, we have a weather statement for parts of southern Manitoba this morning. We're talking about heavy rain and thunderstorms spreading east tonight through Tuesday across the region from the Westman region, and we'll see it come towards the northern area. We're looking at 10 to 40 millimeters of downpour, while up north we're seeing more like dry conditions, a mix of sun and clouds in that part of the province. Here in the Red River Valley region, Winnipeg, we're looking at a mix of sun and clouds right now, warming up to 21. We're seeing temperatures between 12 and 13 at the Forks and at the airport today. Southern regions, similar story, 11s to 13 with Suggy systems moving in sometime tonight. Morden warms to 21, Brandon warms to 16, 17. Dauphin gets to 18, while Gimli gets to 22. And if you look at the northern part, mild and sunny temperatures hovering between 11 and 15 across most of the regions. The powerful influence warms to 21. Norway House gets to 23. Thompson, Linley, Gillam would see 22s, and Tudula Lake gets to 22 also. In the Churchill region, we're looking at a high of 13. Current temperatures there, sunny at 11, mild winds. Winnipeg, we are at 13. We get to 21 later.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Sierra Sanders, what's going on with the commute?
Yeah, Corey, still in the last half an hour, we got a call about the lights being completely, the lights flashing red, I should say, in all directions at Inkster and McPhillips. And it was slowing things down quite a bit through there, especially heading southbound on McPhillips. So Inkster and McPhillips, lights were flashing red in all directions there, and it was quite slow in that area. So that's the only thing I'm kind of keeping an eye on. But if you have an update on that situation or something new has popped up, I'd love to hear about it. Give me a call. The number's 204-788-3093.
Thank you very much, Sierra. Well, 7:38, that means it is time to give away some tickets to next Tuesday's Sea Bears game. CBC Manitoba is sponsoring the Celebrate Canada game on June 30th. And the Sea Bears face the Saskatoon Mamba in the Canadian Elite Basketball League, or CEBL. And to win tickets, we asked you to tell us a story about a bear. And we've had lots of great stories so far. We've given out tickets to 6 people so far. And it's a wide breadth what we're asking for. So in terms of your bear stories, it could be your own bear story. It could be one you heard from a friend, a polar bear, a black bear, a stuffed bear, or maybe even a sea bear as well. So you can also share a video as well. We already got one video. It's the most apropos video you can imagine. It was a bear in someone's front yard chewing on a basketball. But it doesn't have to be that standard. Just tell us any bear story. You can email your entry to win@cbc.ca. That's win@cbc.ca. Or call us at 204-788-3205 and tell us your story. That's 204-788-3205. And that will give you a chance to win. And if we play it on air, that means you are entered and you win the tickets if we play it on air. So today is our next 2 winners we're announcing today. So our first is an email and a video we got from Adam, and he wrote this. He says, so if you're on YouTube, you want to check it out. He says, I was about to head outside for my morning coffee, but when I looked out the window, I noticed I had a visitor. I ended up staying inside for my morning coffee, and it was quite the sight to see. And he's showing a video of this bear kind of creeping through the bush there, out right onto his yard, past a picnic table. Quite something to see in the morning. Great way to start your day, though, as long as you're safe. We also got this call.
Hi, this is Tom Greening. Years ago, I was a wildlife photography guide in northern Quebec, in the Ungava Bay region, so the Arctic coastal region of northern Quebec. And I was guiding a group of international wildlife photographers, professionals, a video crew, and we were camping in our expedition tents out on the open tundra in Ungava Bay. And I got a call over the sat phone after a beautiful long day of following this herd of muskox through the willow bushes. And my boss called me on the sat phone, which was pretty irregular. And he called me to let me know that a polar bear had been spotted about 2 kilometers from our camp by a pair of seal hunters on the river nearby. And the bear was crossing the river heading towards our camp. Now, this call came in at around 6 or 7 p.m., and we finished having dinner, and I realized exactly what I had to do, which was set up our emergency polar bear alert system, which was a little wire that circled around the camp that would turn on some battery-powered floodlights. And I charged all of my floodlight batteries, and I loaded my shotgun with a slug, which was for the absolute last case scenario, which was polar bear defense. And I sat in a lawn chair in the middle of a circle of tents out on the open tundra all night long, trying to be ready for the polar bear to wander through camp. And hopefully I would just be able to scare it off, and we would move on with our trip. And that was probably one of the longest nights of my life.
Well, yes, that would that'd be terrifying. Congrats, Tom. Congrats, Adam. Thank you for telling us your stories. You are today's winners. You are going to the Sea Bears game next Tuesday. You both win a pair of tickets. And as I mentioned, all 10 winners will be invited to hit the basketball court live here on Information Radio on Friday, June 26th, to compete in a free throw competition to decide who is also going to win VIP tickets to the game. So finally, if you want to tell us your bear story, you can enter now. Give you one more time the email and phone number here. So you can phone us 204-788-3205. That's 204-788-3205. Or you can also email us at win@cbc.ca. Well, time now, 7:43. And next up on the show, if you were around Winnipeg in the 90s, you might remember the Italian festival that used to block off part of Corden Avenue for days at a time. Those are some of the sounds, if you're on YouTube, and the sights as well, of the Days of Wine and Roses festival that used to take over Corden. Well, Corden Avenue Biz is looking to bring a bit of that festival atmosphere back to the area this summer. They're introducing car-free Sundays for Corden Avenue between Lilac and Daly Streets. And the initiative will begin on July 5th and continue every Sunday throughout the summer until September 6th. And Gino DeStasio thinks it's a good idea for Winnipeggers and local businesses. He's the interim president and vice chancellor of the University of Winnipeg and a professor of urban planning. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
So let's just start by talking about one of the precedents for this initiative. The old days of the Wine and Roses Festival that used to close down Corden Avenue to traffic back in the 90s. Can you just remind people of that festival? Is that something you'd been to?
Oh, absolutely. It brings back a lot of fond memories of spending days and evenings on some hot, sunny patios, enjoying food and friendship and all kinds of Italian culture at that time. And it was really representative of the shift to being more of a patio-based city in the summer, where Winnipeggers love to get out, they love to go for a stroll. And Corden still, to me, remains one of those few streets in Winnipeg that you can really walk and enjoy. And I think that's what brought people together, just to be seen and to see.
So what do you think of Car Free Sundays starting on Corden Avenue then?
Well, I think it's a great initiative. And, along Corden and over the last few years, they've tried different festival events, blocking off the edges of streets and having small pocket concerts going on Fridays and other days during the week. So I think this is an evolution, some ways going forward and some ways looking back at the history that Winnipeggers will come to Corden and spend part of a day enjoying the street and having a coffee or a beverage.
So, it's been like this before. There have been these car-free moments on Corden, but it's stopped for quite a while. What needs to happen for this to have some staying power this time, do you think?
Well, I think it's a combination. So right now, Winnipeg is a different place than it was in the 1990s. Now, the Exchange District is vibrant. They're trying some street closures, some lane closures, obviously the forks. So there's a lot of competition now for the Winnipegger to come, sit, and enjoy. But I think the advantage of a street like Corden is it is a wonderfully walkable street. And those are the streets in cities that really command that presence of just being there and enjoying. And Corden still does have a number of shops and cafes and restaurants that can attract people to sit and or walk. And I think that's the advantage that Winnipeggers and others look for, including tourists, to really be a part of an afternoon kind of event.
And we can talk about the other stuff going in the city. What have you noticed about the success of the other car-free parts of the city? I know Graham Avenue recently. What have you noticed about how well that's been doing so far?
Well, to me, Graham's a little bit different. It's more of an event anchor. So if there's something going on at the arena or something going on downtown, it can really attract people in between. I don't think it's on the same scale as a walkable street just yet, because there's not much going on that part of Graham. It's got some work to do. to become really a pedestrian, thriving kind of environment. So to me, places like the Exchange District, where we see just huge numbers of people coming in the evenings when they have pop-up markets and close off lanes and spaces. So Winnipeggers want to get out, and when they see the sun and they have the opportunity to walk or sit and enjoy the evening or afternoon, they're going to come to environments that are really exciting and electric. And if Corden, I'm sure they're going to mix in some music and some good food, and again, just that ability to walk and be seen. I'm looking forward to it.
It still feels novel here, though, right? Like for Winnipeg to close down a street to cars. How common are initiatives like this in other cities, though? Are we kind of an outlier when it comes to doing these sort of initiatives?
I think it's a mix and match. I think we're trying to get back to it. But again, for folks that have been in Europe or other parts of the world where it's so much more common, especially in the urban core, to have very walkable streets that are either closed off or become dominated by the pedestrian. So I think often you see those mixes and matches. But again, in Canada, from Spark Street or in Calgary, there's lots of examples where cities close off streets, including our neighbors in Minneapolis that also have a downtown pedestrian kind of mall. So it is making a little bit of a comeback, and I think post-pandemic, people still feel comfortable being outside together, maybe a little bit more than we do sometimes indoors together.
And what do you think about this as the state of Winnipeg's car culture? Because I think it's something that's very, very common. It's something that we all kind of understand to be a thing. Do you expect some pushback from drivers for these initiatives?
Well, there'll probably be a little bit of a learning curve and there'll be some detours. But again, testing it out on a Sunday and going into Sunday evening, I think should be reasonable for Winnipeggers that drive. And again, you know what, we have to admit too that probably a lot of individuals coming to Corden on a Sunday afternoon will probably drive and park. So there'll be some congestion. But again, good urbanism is also a little bit about that chaotic nature of cities. It can't be perfect. It has to be a little bit messy sometimes to work. So this will be a mismatch of cars and cyclists and just people walking up into the neighborhood. But hopefully too, tourists and Winnipeggers and Manitobans who are coming in for the weekend to say, hey, let's go in the afternoon, get a gelato, get some sushi, grab some pizza, get whatever, a burrito. There's so much diversity now on Corden than there was in the 1990s. So now I think the experience is really a unique mix of people, places, and culture that should trump the sense that there's not enough parking or that I'm being detoured for a few minutes.
Mm-hmm. And where else in the city would you like to see an initiative like this, as you kind of make your way around through your urban planning lens?
Well, to me, we're on Portage, so I'd love to see Portage Avenue become more of a pedestrian-oriented street. But certainly the Exchange District, we really want to see that area just come to life as it does as the home base for so many summer festivals. And I have to admit, there's nothing much better than an evening in the Exchange during a jazz festival, the Fringe Festival, or any of the other kinds of events going on there where it just showcases this heritage and people and bustle. That's real urbanism. And I think Corden can certainly stand its own in terms of doing the same kind of thing for Winnipeg.
Well, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Gino. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That is Gino DeStasio. He's the interim president and vice chancellor of the University of Winnipeg and a professor of urban planning.
Manitoba may have a reputation for being cold and flat, but our podcast isn't. I'm Marcy Marcusa, the warmest host on the prairies. Even when my podcast, This is Manitoba, is exploring some challenging issues. I'm never flat when it comes to holding our leaders to account. Some of those interviews have been called spicy. If you care about this province, check out This is Manitoba, with new episodes dropping every Wednesday.
7:51 right now here on Information Radio. And next up on the show, many Manitobans are struggling financially, as you've been hearing in the news. The rising cost of living, from rent and mortgage rate increases to growing grocery and gas bills, have left people feeling pinched, and more people are turning to insolvency trustees for help. Now, last year, Manitoba saw the highest number of insolvency filings in a decade, almost 4,000. And the CBC's Lauren Scott spoke with Chloe Friesen about why crushing debt is becoming a growing problem for Manitobans.
So, what are you hearing about how Manitobans are dealing with debt?
Well, many folks are having a really hard time right now, Chloe. I spoke to financial experts who help people that are feeling weighed down by their debts. Like Tanya Reynolds, who's a licensed insolvency trustee and a senior vice president with MNP in Winnipeg. She says no one's happy to walk into her office. They're all stressed and struggling financially. Like an unemployed young mother who filed for bankruptcy after her breadwinning partner died suddenly without a life insurance policy. She didn't know they had joint debt because her partner handled all the finances. Or a couple whose mortgage rate increased significantly, making it hard for them to afford basic living expenses, let alone put a dent in their debt.
They got to a point where they started to miss their credit card payments and miss their line of credit payments. And of course, with that comes a great deal of stress.
Insolvency trustees hear a lot of stories like these, but it's a really sensitive issue and people have a lot of difficult feelings around their debt, like anxiety and shame. The trustees we spoke to reached out to several of their clients on our behalf, but no one wanted to talk to us about it. And that's really understandable. It's just such a sensitive topic to get folks to open up about.
How many people in Manitoba are going through this?
Yeah, so just to back up a little bit here, there's two types of insolvencies, consumer proposals and bankruptcies. Most people here are making consumer proposals. That's where you sit down and come up with a formal plan to pay back your creditors over a period of time, up to 5 years. But some are filing for bankruptcy. That's a legal process that can include selling off your things to clear your debt. Both significantly affect your credit rating. We saw the highest number of consumer insolvencies in a decade last year. In 2025, there were 3,949 insolvency filings. I spoke to Mark Kalinowski earlier this year. He's a financial educator with the Credit Counseling Society. Mark says Manitobans aren't alone. A lot of Canadians are struggling with their debt right now.
No one looks to have financial hardship, and I think it's really important that we remind people that they're not alone. A lot of people are dealing with the same situations, but with a little bit of help, you can overcome them and get back up on your feet.
And they're definitely not alone. More than 1,000 Manitobans made insolvency filings in the first 3 months of this year, too. That's 14% higher compared to the same time in 2025, and it puts us on track to surpass last year's total.
So how did we get here?
Well, Chloe, there's a bunch of different factors. Both Mark and Tanya told me that people are really struggling with the rising cost of living. Everything's getting more expensive. Grocery and gas bills are growing, and people's rent and mortgage rates are increasing. Others are struggling to pay back debt that was built up or deferred during the pandemic, when many people were out of work and creditors were a bit more forgiving. Here's what Mark told me.
We're seeing people are very stressed around their debt right now, and it's not surprising. The world has been an unsettling place. The cost of living has gone up dramatically. There's all sorts of job pressure around tariffs. It's not been an easy time to sort of endure. And as people have built up more and more debt, their savings have reduced, and they're not feeling very, very comfortable, and they're starting to seek help.
And then there's those sudden financial setbacks that just can't be planned for, like losing a job or getting sick or a death in the family, even divorce. And all these can lead a person to rack up debt unexpectedly. Here's what Mark said about when to reach out for help.
If for some reason you think you have a money issue, maybe you wake up at night, you can't sleep, maybe you're yelling at the kids and you're like, oh, I'm so stressed out. Maybe you're at work and you can't sit and focus. Well, that's the first sign that you need help. And the sooner you ask for help, the sooner you have your solution, often the less impactful it is on your credit.
So where should people go to get the help they need?
Well, everyone's situation is different, and it really depends on the help that they're looking for. For some, tracking their finances and setting a budget will really help pull them out of debt. But the insolvency route may be better for others. Either way, a licensed insolvency trustee will sit down with someone and lay out all their options. Here's what Tanya says.
We're not judging. All we want to do is make sure that we put in front of them the options they need to make the best choices going forward and to make sure that they can move on positively financially in the future.
Then it's up to the person which road they want to go down. It's important to know, though, that insolvency trustees are the only federally regulated debt professionals, and they're the only ones that can help you file a consumer proposal or bankruptcy. Mark warns there are scammers out there who make it seem like they can help you with this, but they can't. And they're trying to take advantage of people who are feeling desperate and panicked. So take a deep breath before you reach out to a licensed professional.
How are people generally, or how do people generally feel after they go through the insolvency process?
Yeah. Tanya described a weight being lifted for many of her clients. She told me that young mother who filed for bankruptcy has come out the other side. She's now employed, providing for her 2 children while managing the family's finances. And that Winnipeg couple who filed a consumer proposal have been making payments for over a year, and now they're looking at saving for the future. Tanya says it's stories like these that keep her going.
Nobody's excited to walk through the doors generally, but the feeling of relief that we're told and we can see on their face once they know that there's an option for them out there to manage it is, that's just kind of what makes our job most successful.
So, Lauren, where do we go from here?
Well, Manitobans are facing a variety of financial challenges, and we want to hear those stories. We are running a survey to learn more about what people are going through right now. It's embedded in today's web story and asks participants to answer a few questions about the financial challenges they're facing. We won't reach out for a story or use the information unless you give us permission. We just want to make sure we're reflecting the financial realities of people in this province. You can find that story on cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you so much for joining us, Lauren.
Thank you.
That's CBC's Lauren Scott. We'll be back after World Report with a dog in studio. Stay tuned.
Q. There's a good chance that some of your favorite albums of the last 10 years were made by the same person, like Taylor Swift, Lana Del Rey, Lorde. Jack Antonoff has produced them all. He's one of the most sought-after producers in music right now, and he'll be here to talk about being in the room when something legendary gets made.
I feel like in service of this thing.
Q with Tom Power, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Thousands of condos are sitting empty in big cities, even as this country faces a housing crisis. The mismatch between tiny spaces and where Canadians actually want to live, and what developers and investors are doing to solve that, coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Keir Starmer has resigned as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. This comes just 2 years after leading the Labour Party to a landslide election win. Starmer succumbed to a coordinated push from his own MPs to step aside. His departure sets the stage for Britain to welcome its 7th Prime Minister in just under 10 years. Anna Cunningham has more from London.
Walking up this street 2 years ago was the proudest moment of my life.
After a weekend of speculation, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, the man who took the Labour Party to a landslide victory in July 2024, announced his decision.
I will resign as leader of the Labour Party. I have spoken to His Majesty the King this morning to inform him of my decision.
In the wake of bruising nationwide local election results last month, Starmer rapidly lost the confidence of his cabinet ministers and governing MPs. He said he will leave office after a new Labour leader who will become Prime Minister is selected.
I will remain in post as Prime Minister until the contest is complete.
Despite efforts to move Britain closer to Europe, renewing ties with Canada and his support for Ukraine, the British Prime Minister's downfall is marked by a failure of domestic politics. There has been a series of policy U-turns, questions too about his judgment, in particular his appointing a close friend of Jeffrey Epstein, Peter Mandelson, as UK ambassador to the US. The governing Labour Party is fully aware that it faces opposition in the form of growing support for the populist, hard right-leaning Reform Party. It believes it can only retain power with a change in leadership.
I shall spend more time on the most important job, being the best husband I can to my fantastic wife, Vic, who has been a rock by my side through good times and bad.
Starmer is now the shortest-serving Labour Prime Minister in history. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
The cost of living continues to climb for Canadians. Statistics Canada has just released its latest report on inflation. It shows the annual rate rose 3.2% in May, up from 2.8% in April. CBC senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong has more on what's driving prices up.
You certainly don't need to know advanced statistics to see what's happening here. Energy prices they are, and they will continue to be the biggest influence. The numbers that we're looking at today look back at what was happening in May, which saw the sharpest increase in gasoline prices since the war with the U.S., Israel, and Iran since that began. Gas prices in that month were up 33.2%. Now, they have come down considerably from that peak, but they're still way higher than they were before the war began, and that's the problem we're looking at in this report. The longer those higher energy costs remain in place, the more likely it is they'll spill over into other categories, and we're seeing that at least beginning in today's report. Core inflation is up, travel costs are up, and mostly food costs that affect us all are up as well. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
Alan Greenspan, the former head of the U.S. Federal Reserve, has died. He was chair of the Fed between 1987 and 2006, serving under 4 presidents. Greenspan presided over a sustained era of American growth and prosperity, but he also faced blame for the 2008 housing bust and financial meltdown that came 2 years after he left the central bank. Critics say Greenspan's decision to set interest rates at record lows led to that crisis. It was the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression of the 1930s. His wife says he died today from complications of Parkinson's disease. Alan Greenspan was 100. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance says a lot of good progress has been made in talks aimed at ending the war between Iran and the U.S.
We laid a very good foundation for a successful final deal. The final deal is the house. We haven't built the house, but we've laid a successful foundation to get to a good place for the American people.
Vance has been the lead negotiator for the U.S. during the first round of high-level talks in Switzerland. The two sides have agreed on a roadmap to end the conflict within 60 days, but it is not clear if it will affect the violence in Lebanon. Crystal Gomansing has more.
Israel is in favor of anything that gets rid of the existential threat to our country.
Fleur Hassan Nahum works in the foreign ministry and is a former deputy mayor of Jerusalem. She says Iran is the aggressor and is doubtful about long-lasting change. Israel is not a party to the peace talks, but the American administration has stated it expects Israel to accept any deal, which has resulted in one response.
We're defending our people. We have the right to. We're a sovereign country.
Fighting between Israel and Hezbollah loomed over the mediated talks by Pakistan and Qatar. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance struck a friendly tone Sunday, but was explicit, saying change hinges on Iran no longer driving regional instability and abandoning nuclear weapons ambitions.
The United States is willing to fundamentally transform our relationship with that country.
Day one of talks resulted in technical plans on how to proceed and the creation of working groups, making it possible to deal with major issues like nuclear weapons, sanctions, and the future of the Strait of Hormuz within the tight 60-day time frame. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi outlined on social media his view of achievements: the waiving of oil exports, some frozen assets released, and the deconfliction cell for Lebanon. All of this, however, hinges on trust and the willingness to, as Vice President Vance put it, turn over a new leaf. Crystal Gomansing, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Canada is securing a new eye in the sky for its northern frontier. Ottawa has signed a $2.5 billion agreement with Australia to purchase advanced radar technology. Procurement Secretary Stephen Fuhr signed the deal late Sunday in Canberra. He says the equipment will help Canada secure its Arctic borders.
This capability will significantly enhance Canada's Arctic domain awareness, detect and track air and maritime threats with much greater range, strengthen NORAD by providing earlier warning and improving continental defense, and reinforce Canada's Arctic sovereignty.
Over the horizon, radar allows operators to track missiles and aircraft thousands of kilometers away. The system is seen as a crucial investment in monitoring threats over the far north. It is expected to be operational by 2029. Prime Minister Mark Carney announced a strategic partnership with Australia last year, shortly after taking office. Residents in central Alberta are being asked to conserve water. Sewer and stormwater systems reached capacity with heavy rainfall in and around Edmonton, and there are concerns more rain in the forecast could make conditions worse. Non-essential water use warnings have been issued in several nearby communities, including St. Albert and Beaumont. Environment Canada says more than 110 millimeters of rain has already fallen. An out-of-control wildfire is burning just 3 kilometers south of Lytton, British Columbia. It's triggered evacuation orders and brought back painful memories for a community still trying to rebuild. Nearly 5 years ago, wildfire tore through the town. As Brady Strachan tells us, this new fire has residents once again feeling a deep sense of unease.
The out-of-control wildfire is chewing through steep canyon terrain just south of Lytton. BC Wildfire Service crews are attacking it from the ground and the air. Fanned by winds, the flames threaten hundreds of homes now under evacuation alerts or orders.
You know, it's going to continue with that hot and very dry in the outlook with our peak temperatures coming up a little bit later, early next week.
Fire Information Officer Paula Wallbauer says a specialized crew of nearly 50 firefighters is focused entirely on structure protection.
They'll have bladders hooking up to water and checking their sprinklers, setting them up. And checking and making sure in the event that they need them, that they're up and ready to go.
The fire is burning just 3 kilometers from Lytton, a community still recovering from a catastrophic blaze 5 years ago.
It's like we're starting all over again. Like
Dean Adams lost his home in 2021. With the 5-year anniversary of that fatal fire just over a week away, he says it's an uneasy sense of déjà vu.
To go through it again. And the feeling is really weird. It's hard to say, hard to believe, but my neighbor over here, they're the ones that passed away.
This fire comes during a time of extreme drought across BC. Following a low snowpack and dry spring, officials warn of challenging months ahead as the province approaches peak wildfire season. Brady Strachan, CBC News, near Kamloops, BC.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio. I'm Corey Funk in for Marcy Marcusa. And coming up this half hour, Winnipeg Animal Services has seen a surge in dogs coming into its care. We're going to hear why, and we're also going to have a dog here in studio. Her name's Moxie. She's adorable. She's here right now. We're going to hear her story about how she came into care and why so many dogs have been, like her, have been coming into animal services. We're going to hear that story. Also, this half hour on the show, it was rumored all weekend, and it's now official. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer will resign. We're going to hear from UK journalism professor Eamon O'Neill about what went wrong and about what may have been the final straw on Friday. We're going to talk all about that coming up this half hour on Information Radio. Stay tuned. At 8:11, let's check in now with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, the cost of living continues to climb for Canadians. Statistics Canada has just released its latest report on inflation, showing a bigger jump than expected. Nationally, inflation climbed to 3.2% in May. It had been 2.8% in April. In Manitoba, inflation rose to 4.6% from 4.3% in April, among the highest in the country. StatsCan says high gas prices are driving that increase. increase. The family of a woman whose rings were stolen off her finger while she was in a personal care home is still fighting for restitution more than 7 years later. Carla Sly is the daughter of one of the victims, and she says court is requiring her to collect $3,800. A judge ordered the person to pay. She says it feels like victimizing the victim again. We'll hear her story in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That's Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. Abby Adiyemi, looks like a nice day ahead, but then some wet weather ahead.
It's starting nice, but then we're going to see the transition as there's a special weather statement is advising that there's a risk of heavy rain and storms to southern areas, while the north is really going to be enjoying the stretch of dry sunshine. Hence, that statement saying we should be prepared tonight into Tuesday as part of the Pembina Valley region all the way to the Westman region. We'll be seeing about 10 to 40 millimeters of rain. Here in the city, we are looking at a mix of sun and clouds to start, some windy conditions. Current temperatures around 15 degrees. We warm up to 21 later. It's going to be humid at some point, and then we get some rain tomorrow. Down south, we're seeing 13 to 16s, while up north, we are looking at 12 to 16 degrees. Most of the regions getting close to 22 degrees today.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Sierra Sanders, what's going on with the commute?
Yeah, Corey, it's been about an hour since I got an update about Inkster and McPhillips, where the lights were flashing red in all directions there. The last I heard, it was quite slow, especially if you were heading southbound McPhillips there. So I'd love an update on that situation. It's been about an hour since I've heard anything about that, so I'd love some more info on that if you are in the area. As well, just a heads up about the northbound Pembina Highway exit ramp. So that exit ramp to eastbound Abino-Jimikana will be fully closed until August 3rd. So you want to keep that in mind there if you are in the area. As well, we are also seeing a closure on St. John Ambulance Way. So all northbound lanes of St. John Ambulance Way between Empress Street East to Portage Avenue will be closed for water work until July 3rd. So there will be no access to Portage Avenue East. So a couple things to keep in mind there, but if something new pops up on your drive or you have an update on any situations, I'd love to hear about it. Give me a call. That number is 204-788-3093.
Well, up next here on Information Radio, we've got a furry friend joining us for our next interview. And if you're not on YouTube, you may want to hop over there to our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Last week, Winnipeg Animal Services Agency was met with a surge in dogs entering their shelter, and in response, they lowered their adoption rates for dogs that spent more than 2 weeks in their care, all in hopes to find forever homes for their furry friends while opening up space in their shelter. And Zoe Austin is here with Winnipeg Animal Services Agency, along with Moxie, who's up for adoption. So before we talk about the surge and what all happened with that, just tell us a little bit about Moxie and why she's up for adoption.
Moxie is amazing. So Moxie's been with us almost 80 days now, which is way too long for any dog to sit in shelter. She's a lovely girl. She's one of our more popular doggy date dogs. She's been all over the city romping around with citizens. She just hasn't quite been able to stick her forever home yet.
And she's this beautiful, what kind of breed would you describe her as?
Well, I'm describing her as a mini mastiff. She's she got a cute little wrinkly forehead. She's tan in color, black face. She's just a beautiful, she could be a boxer cross. Your guess is as good as ours, really.
And how did she come to you? What's her story?
She is your run-of-the-mill Winnipeg stray that comes into animal services and never gets claimed. So it's a head scratcher for us, right? She's a girl who's house trained. She's got some tricks on board. She's lovely with every person she meets. So where are her people? Who knows?
Yeah, 80 days, you said she's been in your care. Well, why does it take so long for a dog like her to be adopted?
Yeah, we have a group of 3 kind of mastiffy girls in our care right now who don't like other dogs. So that's a big barrier to adoption for a lot of dogs, because so many people who come in have a dog and want a second dog as a companion. So these girls, Rhonda, Ripley, and Moxie, are all only dog homes. That makes it a little bit tougher for them to get out into their forever homes.
Okay. So now I want to talk a little bit about what happened last week. So the number of dogs in the city's care jumped to 40, up from 25 a week earlier. So what's behind that jump in numbers?
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that Animal Services as a municipal shelter does a number of different functions. So if someone has a medical event in the city and they need to be taken to hospital, their dog is left in the home alone, that's where we come in. So someone can go and get the care they need, come back and get their dog after that they're taken care of. Fires, when there's a fire in a home and the dog is left there, we go in, we deal with Winnipeg Fire Paramedic, Winnipeg Police Service incidents day in, day out. And then stray dogs, right? Anywhere in the city where there's a stray dog who gets a little lost, they find their way to us. So at any moment, we could have 3 intakes, 4 intakes. We just never know what's coming at us.
So you reduced adoption rates in response to that surge. How'd it go?
It went really well. We're 25 dogs as of this morning, which is more comfortable for us. It's not ideal. We definitely want to be at 0 dogs, but that's never happened to us. So 25 is an okay number, but we still remain with a number of long-term dogs for us. We'd love to get these guys out into their right homes.
So tell us about some of the dogs that are up for adoption right now.
Yeah, so Ripley is a Connie Corso mix. She's we have these 3 girls, Ripley, Rhonda, and Moxie. Rhonda goes with Winnipeg Fire Paramedic almost daily for the last little while, visiting fire halls and hospitals. She's a great dog. She's a sort of a mastiff mix, looks a lot like Moxie. Ripley's a Connie Corso mix. All 3 of these dogs are between 2 and 4 years, and all 3 of them have been with us between 70 and 80 days. So those are our most long-term kids right now.
Okay. And why do you think someone should consider adopting?
Oh my goodness. Why should someone consider adopting? These dogs are so deserving, right? Part of the reason that Doggy Days is so popular is because it brings so much wellness to people. Shelter dogs are a whole different thing, right? They're so deserving of homes. A lot of them come with some tricks on board. Moxie here is house trained. She's just loving with every single person that she meets. So it brings so much joy to people's lives to give these dogs a really good home.
And you mentioned earlier some of the reasons dogs come to your shelter are for reasons even out of their owner's controls, or like a medical emergency, things like that. But
Absolutely.
In terms of prevention, what can be done to keep more dogs from coming into your shelter? Are there preventable things people can do?
Absolutely. ID on the dog is the biggest thing for us. So the City of Winnipeg has a licensing program. We encourage everyone, it is the law to license your dog, but we encourage people based on the fact that if your dog comes into our officers' care, we're out there in the community, we catch your dog's lost, we drive your dog right back home. Our officers love doing that piece for the community, and it's also best for the dog because the dog never has to end up in the shelter. The shelters, we work really hard and our staff are so great, but the shelter's not ever ideal. Home is ideal for these dogs.
Moxie's being very sweet right now. Sierra Sanders was just in here with the camera right up in her face, the phone camera, and then Sierra left to get a guest on the phone. Now Moxie's up looking through the glass longingly, missing Sierra right now. She's just connected with her right away. She's
Right?
so sweet. Well, Zoe, Moxie, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
I hope you find a home soon there, Moxie. Zoe Austin is with Winnipeg Animal Services Agency. You can see the dogs that are up for adoption on the Animal Services Agency website.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
It looks like this is maybe a one-day blip when farmers across the province need hot and dry.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take.
In general, it's harder to find a job even if you're educated.
I'm Marjorie Dowhouse. From 12:15 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
When I was 5 or 6, my parents gave me seeds and helped me plant them. That was probably close to 70 years ago. And here I am still gardening.
It just brings everyone together. Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you weekdays on CBC.
Manitoba may have a reputation for being cold and flat, but our podcast isn't. I'm Marcy Marcusa, the warmest host on the prairies. Even when my podcast, This is Manitoba, is exploring some challenging issues. I'm never flat when it comes to holding our leaders to account. Some of those interviews have been called spicy. If you care about this province, check out This is Manitoba, with new episodes dropping every Wednesday.
8:21 right now here on Information Radio. And a reminder to folks who have been listening that we do have an ongoing competition right now to win a pair of tickets. We actually have 10 pairs of tickets to give away to the Sea Bears game next Tuesday. So if you want to enter, all you got to do is email us or call us with your bear story. So that number to call, our listener line, we've had lots of entries so far, and if we decide to play it on air, that means you win. So you can call us. We're still taking entries, 204-788-3205. That's 204-788-3205. You can also email us at win@cbc.ca. That's win@cbc.ca. Looking forward to hearing some more of those bear stories. Well, next up here on the show, 8:22 right now, and a weekend of speculation. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced this morning that he will step down as leader of the ruling Labour Party. That announcement comes just 3 days after Starmer's potential replacement won a special election on Friday. And Eamon O'Neill is an associate professor in journalism at Edinburgh Napier University. Good morning.
Good morning, Corey.
So, as we said, Starmer has been under pressure, but were you surprised by this at all today?
No, frankly, I wasn't, and I don't think any of my colleagues in the press across the UK would have been surprised either. And the reason I say that is because Mr. Starmer has been under enormous pressure since May when he led the party to a terrible defeat at the local elections in England and Wales, and also his poor performance up in Scotland as well is something at the back of his mind. But the fact that then last Thursday, when a parliamentary seat by-election was run in the northeast of England and was won by one of his political enemies within the Labour Party, Andy Burnham, a name that listeners should get familiar with pretty soon, showed him that Burnham was able to take on the right-wing party Reform, which is riding high in the polls in recent months, and beat them. And that was something he couldn't do at the local elections, and his own MPs would be very worried at the next general election that he would lead them to a pretty drastic defeat. So Burnham is seen as the new guy with the new formula to beat the other party Reform and also to lead them to victory. So that's why he is, as I speak, being administered to become an MP at Westminster. And as soon as that happens, he will put his name forward to become the next Labour leader. And because no one will stand against him, he will, unless there's an act of God, become Prime Minister in the UK within the next 5 or 6 weeks, Corey.
And what could that mean for the Labour Party now going forward? Is it just going to be business as usual, or is it a little more shaky now?
I think it's more shaky with a new leader, but it's that kind of optimistic shaky, if that's not a contradiction, because I think that the Labour Party MPs were terrified that they did not have a platform, a manifesto, whatever you want to call it, which was appealing enough to voters to beat parties like Reform, which was coming from the right of the political spectrum, but defeating them in their own Labour left-of-centre heartlands. In other words, there seemed to be some sort of quote-unquote populism for the right parties because they were pushing issues like immigration and so on to the top of the agenda, whilst Labour was trying to fight on policy issues like the economy and the stability in foreign affairs and so on. And really, Andy Burnham is seen as somebody who's got the formula to do that, whereas Keir Starmer simply couldn't. And they showed that at the local elections. He didn't have the right message at the right time. So it would seem that Burnham does. And that to them, as I say, it will be cautiously optimistic that that's their guy to both lead the party to victory for all the political reasons they would hope, and also for personal reasons, because it means they can hang on to their jobs if he wins a good majority at the next general election.
And where do the Conservatives stand right now in the UK? And could this, open up an opportunity for them to potentially gain some more popularity?
Well, at the moment, the Conservative Party are sitting on 19% of the electorate, their intentions to vote in the next general election, and Reform is at 27%, and the Labour Party are just ahead of the Conservatives on 20%. But don't forget, Reform has essentially jumped over both Labour and the Conservatives to lead. Now, because they lost the by-election last week, and because their leader, Nigel Farage, is seen as a bit of a political old fox who is almost a one-man band at times, because the candidates for reform have been, to say the least, somewhat unpredictable, then the Conservatives are perhaps seeing the possibility of some gains. Now, bizarrely, there was an outlying Westminster seat that was also up for election last Thursday up in Aberdeen in Scotland, and the Conservative Party won there for the first time in decades. So, and they were as shocked, I think, as anyone else. So I think that there is definitely a volatility in the grassroots of what's happening, and it's not going the way that the trend was, which was inexorably for reform to win. And it seems that both the Labour Party and the Conservative, the two old parties, are the ones that are gaining ground here at the expense of reform. So both parties have convinced themselves they're the message and they're the way to beat reform. But this is early days, Corey.
I think a lot of Canadians, we don't necessarily all follow UK politics super
Yeah.
closely, but one thing I think we've all noticed here in Canada is just how many prime ministers you've gone through over the last little while. What's the explanation for that? Is that say more about the state of politics and political culture in the UK, or is it tell more about the leaders themselves that have been chosen?
I mean, good God, it makes journalism even look more stable as a career option, doesn't it? And that's saying something. No, seriously, I think you've touched on two important issues there, Corey. I think on one hand, it's very much bread and butter issues. People, after Brexit, were feeling very confused almost about their identity in some ways. Then, of course, on top of that, you've got the very real implications of Brexit, which were economic, and there were meant to be benefits, but that really has not been delivered in the way that they were promised. And then you had the strange, bizarre event of the pandemic, which of course rattled everyone across the globe, and the UK was not any exception to that. And therefore there have been a sense, I think, that the public have been promised things and maybe they don't feel as if they're being delivered, and therefore they are more apt to change their vote at the drop of a hat or at the drop of a ballot box. And I think also add to that the very real existential world that we live in, where your Amazon parcel can be impacted by what's happening in the Straits of Hormuz. And we live in a strange world where the most powerful man in the world can tweet or X something in the middle of the night and change how you feel about the world the next morning. And in that sense, I think maybe people are trying to get some sort of traction, some sort of control, both in a very straightforward grassroots day-to-day level and also maybe at a more existential level too. And I think that maybe that has contributed to the churn over of political leaders in this country. But you know what? Just when you think there's no more ambitious politicians, a whole battalion comes over the hill afterwards. So in some ways, nothing changes.
Well, Eamon, thanks for breaking this down for us this morning. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Corey. Thanks very much for having me. Thank you very much.
Eamon O'Neill is an associate professor in journalism at Edinburgh Napier University. Well, 8:29 right now, and still to come here on CBC Manitoba Radio Noon with Marjorie Dowhouse is coming up later today. And what's the call today, Marge?
Well, we are asking you what your memories are of watching the NHL on CBC. As you may recall, last week, Rogers Sportsnet, who owns the English broadcast rights to the NHL games, and the CBC couldn't reach an agreement. So for the first time since 1952, NHL games will not be broadcast on the public broadcaster. And we want to hear from you. What memories do you have of watching NHL hockey? Where will you watch it now that it's no longer going to be on the public broadcaster? Give us a call. Join the conversation coming up.
Thank you very much, Marge.
Thank you.
That's Marjorie Dowhouse, host of Radio Noon. Time now for your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it is 15 degrees, partly cloudy out there. First Monday of summer and slightly cooler than seasonal, but not bad. Mix of sun and clouds, a high of 21. Now, there is a special weather statement this morning for southwest Manitoba, western Manitoba, and around the Pembina Valley area. Heavy rainfall possible tonight through tomorrow, anywhere from 10 to 40 millimeters on the way. The family of a woman whose rings were stolen off her finger in a Winnipeg personal care home is fighting for restitution a judge awarded them. Now, the case dates back to 2019. A worker at Kildonan Care Home stole jewelry in February and March of that year from 8 residents living with dementia or Alzheimer's. Anna Mercado was sentenced to 1 year in jail and ordered to pay restitution to the victims or their families. The daughter of one of the victims, Carla Sly, got $400, but she is still waiting for an additional $3,800 payment ordered by the judge, which the court says is her responsibility to collect.
It's not the money. For me, it's about how victims are treated in our system, especially like the seniors that were all traumatized by this action.
Most of the stolen jewelry was sold to a gold buyer and couldn't be recovered. The province says if restitution isn't paid, victims can make a claim in civil court and try to get the money. Well, Manitoba continues to post among the highest inflation in all of Canada. Stats Canada says inflation in this province rose to 4.6% from 4.3% in April. Nationally, inflation also took a bigger jump than expected, up to 3.2% in May. It had been 2.8% in April. Stats Canada says high gas prices are driving the increase. Nearly 4,000 Manitobans made insolvency filings last year. That is the highest number of consumer insolvencies in the last decade. Tanya Reynolds is a licensed insolvency trustee with MNP Limited in Winnipeg, and she has helped people file consumer proposals and bankruptcies.
Nobody's excited to walk through the doors generally, but the feeling of relief that we're told and we can see on their face once they know that there's an option for them out there to manage it is, that's just kind of what makes our job most successful.
More than 1,000 Manitobans made insolvency filings in just the first 3 months of this year. People in central Alberta are being asked to conserve water. Sewer and stormwater systems reached capacity with heavy rain in and around Edmonton, and there are concerns more rain in the forecast could make conditions even worse. Non-essential water use warnings have been issued in several nearby communities, including St. Albert and Beaumont. Environment Canada says more than 100 millimeters of rain has already fallen. 3 students are dead in a school shooting in the central Philippines. 7 other students were hurt. Police say two fellow students aged 14 and 15 have been arrested. It happened at a high school mid-morning local time in Tacloban City. Regional police are investigating and say most of the dead and wounded are female students. Well, celebrating National Indigenous Peoples Day. Hundreds gathered for the event at the Forks on Sunday in a showcase of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis culture. Residential school survivor Donna Green says these celebrations are a key to healing and an opportunity to pass on Indigenous traditions to the next generation.
It's extremely important now is for us to not lose our languages completely, because the languages give us the history of our people. It gives us the knowledge that the older ancestors have to offer.
Yesterday marked the 30th National Indigenous Peoples Day. It is celebrated every June 21st to coincide with the summer solstice. And it was the biggest marathon ever. 14,000 people lacing up at yesterday's Manitoba Marathon. Among them, George Stasiuk. At 89 years old, he says he still has lots left in the tank and wants others to get involved too. He finished the 10K with a hop and a smile.
If I could do it at 89, anybody can do it. I started at 75, so lots of people have lots of time.
How incredible. Organizers say about 70% of participants yesterday were people taking part in the marathon for the very first time. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That's Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. Sierra Sanders, what's going on with the commute?
Hi, Corey. Got a call from Kelly on our listener line just to give us a little traffic tip just about Chief Pegwest. She said it's down to 1 lane heading westbound. She said it was kind of around the Lajmodiere area, and I did a quick look. look. Chief Peguis from eastbound and westbound directions from La Jamodiere to Henderson Highway, all eastbound lanes and all westbound lanes are closed for street construction. So I think there's only one lane open in each direction at a time there. And that's expected to run until June 26th. So some backups there. So you want to keep that in mind here throughout this week.
Thank you very much. That and Abby Adiemi, some wet weather ahead.
Yeah, special weather statement. We're looking at heavy rains coming in tonight towards part of the Westman, the Pembina Valley region, and Winnipeg will be getting rain tomorrow morning. We're looking at highs close to 22 in the southern end of the province, while up north we might just see highs close to 21 and 22. Winnipeg currently we're hovering near 16. We get to 21 today.
Thank you very much, Abby. And thank everyone for tuning in this morning. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcus. I'll be in today and tomorrow covering for her. Stay tuned. The Current is standing by. Have a good one.